Yo, what's up? I'm Raymond, and you're watching Feline Channel. That was close enough. How are we doing, everybody? Welcome to another Disney Channel... No, I'm just kidding. Welcome to another Project Disney Channel... God damn it, I can't get the word Disney Channel out of my head now for some reason. Welcome to another Project Feline dev stream. I gotta remember to stop calling these dev streams, because everyone gets the wrong idea that I'm gonna, like, magically get a million lines of code done on stream! Wow, just like real game developers do. But no, we're just doing some progress show and tell, some cool stuff like that. Showing you what I've been cooking. Doing fine, but tired. Oh, me too, man, me too. Hey, Cosmic, the Mr. Cosmic Hiroshi himself. Not aggressively American enough? Well, look, I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry. I gotta move. We gotta get... I'm only half American. I gotta get full American, and then maybe I can be aggressive enough to meet your standards. I don't know. I don't know how they do it, though. But I like the American accent, though. It does sound cool. But I will forever hate myself for not having a completely aggressive American accent, unfortunately. Yo, chef. Yeah, hi. Yes, chef indeed. Chef indeed, my friend. Your game has been a repeat inspiration for me. I hope you have fun this stream. Thank you, Hirosh. Very nice of you to say. Well, I hope everyone has fun. I hope we all have fun. I like your accent. I'm American. Oh, guys, we did it. Oh, that's awesome. An American actually likes my accent. That's great. American accent, which one? See, I don't know, because I know there's a few different types. I don't know them all. I don't know all the different ones. They're like Pokemon. You got to catch all the accents. But they all sound cool, because they all have character to them. And they're very easy to listen to. I don't know, it's easy on the ears. Even though this guy here, Cosmic, says it sounds aggressive. I don't know, man. To me, it sounds comforting. I think the Australian accent sounds aggressive. That's the one I don't like. Hi, Equinox. Yeah, everything's doing okay. I'm just waiting for, like, a few more people to show up before I get into things. We'll do a bit of small talk, as the kids say, before that point. Or as the extroverts say... how's the weather? Oh, heard any news from the other provinces? Nothing I'd like to talk about. Be seeing you. End stream. See, that's how I do my small talk. I do it like an Oblivion NPC. Texas Southern accent is silly. No, it's not. I think the Southern accent in particular is very hospitable. I like it. It sounds like... It like sounds to me like living in a mid-2000s Walden Media film, which is the most comforting thing ever. So yeah, I would sacrifice my accent for a Southern accent, I think, because it's like, I don't know if it's just me, but that sounds very non-aggressive. But I don't know, maybe there are some aggressive ones out there. Equinox likes the Aussie accent. It sounds nice. Well, your opinion might change of that if you're surrounded by it every day. I mean, I guess to someone who doesn't listen to it all the time, it probably does sound pretty cool. But I'm always kind of over it, personally. New York, Boston, Philadelphia. Yeah, see, I don't even know where Boston is, okay? I don't know what all these other accents are, but I mean, they all sound cool. Kind of dig the British accent. I mean, yeah, actually, real. British is also pretty nice. Oh, hey, thanks so much for the bit. Rattail, I've seen you here before. It's so funny, because your name in particular, I know it's meant to be Rattail, but because it's all, like, one word, and it isn't camel-cased, it sounds like I have to speed through the word, like Rattail, instead of Rat-tail. I don't know, man. But thanks for the bit. How many viewers we got? If we get... Okay, we got 80. I think that's... We got 80 on YouTube. What do we got on Twitch? I notice on Twitch I get a lot less viewership. I got like 6 viewers on Twitch, but 100 on YouTube now. Alright, so we'll get into it. I reckon that's enough small talk. How did I do on my small talk? Was that good? I'm trying my social skills out a bit. I hope it wasn't too insufferable. I wish there were more game collaboration online. It's almost impossible to coordinate now with scams and unmotivated people, but love seeing the indie dev scene here on YouTube and on Reddit. Oh, thank you. I mean, Yeah, I kind of, for those reasons, I kind of wish there wasn't more collaboration online and that people didn't need to collaborate. So that's kind of what I'm trying to do anyway. But I get the sentiment though. It'd be nice if everyone just had the exact same work ethic, but unfortunately, it's not really the case, sadly. But oh well. What are you gonna do? So is my desktop better be showing? Okay, my desktop is showing. So I've made some changes. What should I talk about first? Because I've been kind of half between this video I'm doing and some look dev stuff and programming stuff on the game. We'll go through the graphics first because that's probably the most fun. We'll get the lab. Well, actually, we'll even just look at this scene. So last week, I had experimented with a Fresnel. I think that's the way you pronounce it. Not Fresnel, not Fresnel, but Fresnel. It sounds fancier when I pronounce it like that. So I was using the Fresnel shader to get this nice edge highlights on the walls and on the floor and stuff. You've probably noticed that the material and everything is different because I've cleaned up to the master material a lot and I'm using a proper grid texture this time instead of whatever I was using before. This is actually just from a trench broom WAD file, this texture, and I had to go through some procedure to take it out of the WAD file and make it a PNG and put it in the game, just so that I can have an actual prototype, like a measured texture, because the ones I've been using this whole time are from the Super Grid pack, but the materials, they're flexible, but they're like too much. Like the grid would have like a specular and roughness map on it, and it's like I don't want that. I just want a grid, just a gray grid. And because the colors were white too, and the lighting, it's really hard to adjust the lighting when you've got a white texture, like a white grid texture, because it's so overwhelmingly bright, which wasn't a problem with my old before I changed the post-processing. With the default Unreal post-processing, if you have a white material here, like I'll see if I can show you what I mean, because it's overwhelming now, because white actually looks white now. But if I go, if I type in grid, there should be like a default engine grid texture, and if I hit apply, it's gonna be like, yeah, like, whoa, that's so bright. But with default Unreal post-processing, it tone maps it and adjusts it so that that pure white isn't white, and it's like this green-gray shade. So yeah, now it's very, very bright, and I'm like, okay, I need to get an actual grid that is not gonna blind me when I look at it. So I got this instead. That's much easier. So now it's actually easy to judge how bright things are and how dark things are because it's just a mid-gray color. So I've rebaked the lighting for this thing because I think last week I said I was going to look into vertex shading because I wanted to get a more intentional look with the lighting. And I'm going to show this in a few places, but for now we'll just look at the test scene because you guys are probably used to seeing this a lot. And I figured out a way to actually get the lighting to do what I wanted without vertex shading after all, which is pretty neat. Because I think someone mentioned if I was to do vertex shading, I would run into the problem, especially with trench broom maps, where I would need to increase the poly count for everything so that, because it's per vertex. And with trench broom maps, the thing I like about them is that they're very low poly. So that's great. But it means that there's less vertices to do vertex lighting on. And it's like, oh, I didn't think of that. So I tried this out instead. And I know the shadows do look a bit like crinkly cut chips. Okay, don't laugh. This is just because I'm using like the lowest setting for baked lighting. It's called, I think it's literally in the light bake settings, it'll say like lighting quality preview. So it's going to look kind of wavy. I think to fix this, there is a way to increase the light map resolution, which should fix stuff like this, but I don't know how to do that yet. But I'm not really too worried about the shape of the shadows. Like, I don't really care that much. I'm more thinking about the colors and the contrast and the values type thing. And last time, when I previously baked this, because the thing I don't like about Unreal's GI, or global illumination, which, by the way, just to clarify, I know that GI is kind of a buzzword now. Everyone's like, oh, you got to put in global illumination everywhere and whatever. Global illumination isn't that new of a thing. It's been around in movies since, like, Toy Story 2. And Games as early as like 2008 were using global illumination. So like Sonic Unleashed and Mirror's Edge were the first games I had heard about that had used baked global illumination. The reason it's a buzzword now is that people can do real-time global illumination without having to bake light maps. But because I wasn't expecting to go this deep into it, okay, but this is a fun story. So when I had that contractor on the project, right, we had a discussion about GI and lighting, and I remember they were adamant on real time because it's faster. Why is it faster? I have no earthly idea, because from my knowledge, by all accounts, it isn't faster because you have to render it all in real time every frame. Whereas baked lighting, it's already rendered. The computer is not re-rendering this light. So it actually, I don't know where you get the idea that real time is faster, but I don't know. This guy kept saying, you want real time. And I think what he meant is that it's, because it's a bit of a roundabout way, but he was trying to say that it's faster to iterate, as in you can make changes to the levels without having to rebake the lighting. And it's like, yeah, cool, but the player doesn't care. Like, why is that a benefit to the player? Just, like, yes, our job will be easier if we want to make... Because I can't move any of these objects. If I wanted to move this block, if I do that, the shadow will be in the wrong place, and I'd have to rebake the lighting again so that the shadows show up right. So yes, it's faster if it's... faster, using that term loosely here, if I do it real time and I don't have to bake anything, because I can just move stuff and not commit to a design and just make changes forever, and the player will eat the cost. But I don't know, man, that sounds cope. Like, I hate that. Like, I don't know, because there's a certain lightweightness to baked lighting in the final that you see in the final game. Like, every great game I've played, like Sonic Unleashed, Mirror's Edge, that have had amazing lighting, it's all baked lighting every time, and it runs on like a PlayStation 3. And it's like, well, imagine how much better that would run now on a PlayStation 4 or on a desktop today, and not on a game console from 2006. Imagine how much better that would be. But no, it's like, oh, but he kept just trying to discourage me, saying, no, you trust me, you want to do real time. And we did that for a bit, but I eventually was able to talk him into doing baked, because I remember playing it and I was like, no, this sucks, dude. Like, this, because my reasoning is that for the player, because that's the only thing that really matters at the end of the day. It doesn't matter if my job is slightly easier temporarily, because once the game's finished, it's not going to matter. So it's like, yes, it's harder to iterate through, but I mean, you should be doing the light baking last anyway. And, it's kind of good, I think. I kind of like the fact that it sets it in stone. It's not even that inconvenient. I don't know where everyone gets this idea that light baking takes forever. This literally takes, like, less than a minute for me. Like, this... let's change the settings right now. And granted, this is a simple scene, but I swear everyone makes it sound like this is some, impossible dark magic task or whatever. So if I go to change the build light quality to production and go bake lighting only... It's gonna, like, it'll take less than a minute for a scene like this. And the thing for me is that most of my scenes, in terms of geometry complexity, are not gonna be, like, that complicated. Like, I'm not gonna have nanite meshes in there or anything. So, I don't know, maybe it's the nanite people that have this thing that it's like, oh, no, baked lighting is unfeasible because it takes 10 hours to... Like, I've never heard of that happening. I don't know who's... Like, it's not showing on the screen, but just in the bottom corner, it's building it now. So, it started now... Let's can we get a timer? Stopwatch. So we'll add 10 seconds to whatever the result is here. Just to see, because I'm just curious how long it's going to take to do it at full quality. Because it's like, for me, every time I've done it, it hasn't been like long enough to be mad at it. You know what I mean? It hasn't taken so long that it's annoyed me. So I'm, like, fine with the cost of waiting for it to bake. To let the lighting cook. Let it cook, okay? That's how I like doing it. I like letting it cook. I don't want my players' graphics cards cooking while they're playing the game, you know what I mean? So, so this, because I'm doing it at full quality, it's probably, I'm gonna guess, probably a minute or two it'll take. Probably 2 minutes, maybe. but it's not like suffering, and we'll let it run, we'll let it cook, and we'll see what happens. But I actually haven't done this at full quality before, so I'm curious to see what happens. But I guess I can kind of see if you're doing a super complicated scene, that would probably take maybe a couple hours. But when I think of that, my challenge is, well, could I make the geometry simpler? Because that's a fun game, right? It's like, could I make this simpler so that the lighting would take faster or something? But yeah, 2 minutes a day is still 10 hours a year. Well, why are you baking it every day? Like, I don't bake my lighting every day. I bake it like, sometimes I'll leave it up. Like, if I bake it, and granted, I'm not like a level design expert yet. I haven't reached the stage where I'm having to do that yet. But with the scenes I've done so far, I'll set up the lighting a bit, I bake it once, and then I make changes. And then the next day I'll probably think of more changes to make, and I don't bake the lighting yet. It isn't until I'm like reasonably sure, it's like, okay, now I'll bake it. And I'll usually do it at low quality first. And then it's usually, and again, because I haven't made it to the finished line yet, maybe I will have that happen in the future, where it's, you know, where I have to do it 2 minutes every day or something. But I don't know, man, like, because in the time you're sitting there waiting for it to bake, I'm going to be thinking about how happy the player will be that I did this. So I don't think it's going to be that bad compared to the alternative where, oh, I won't choose to suffer at all and I'll just do it real time and my players will hate me. Like, that's the only other option you get. It's like, I can either sit here for 2 minutes and just, you know, like Qui-Gon Jinn in The Phantom Menace when he got the lasers and he's sitting there meditating. See, that's me right now, sitting waiting for this to... It's like 80% finished, so it's probably going to be like 3.5 minutes, which isn't that long. Like, everyone makes it sound like it takes like 2 days or whatever. I don't know. Maybe for the AAAs it does. But it's like... You know, I'd rather just... Because it gives you a moment to sit and think. And while that's happening, I'm going to be thinking of the player will appreciate this. Okay, 99%. 99%. Let's go. Building lighting. 99%. 99%. Come on. Okay, it's stuck on the last percent now. Considering the lighting in your game doesn't seem to change, pre-baked seems... Yeah, that's what I think as well, because I don't want to do anything fancy with it. All right, so that was about 3 and 20, because we'll add 10, because I started this about 10 seconds in. So 3 minutes and 20 seconds, which is like pretty, you know, that's pretty all right. Now, I don't know what just happened there, but the shadows looked very soft for a second, and now they're not. I don't know what happened just then. I'm not a light baking expert by any means, but, you know, I don't know. I don't really notice a big difference between production quality and low quality, to be honest. So yeah, maybe you don't even need to do it production quality. You could literally just do it at whatever, you know, what's the low quality? Because I literally can't notice a difference. It looks the exact same. So yeah, the low quality version literally takes 30 seconds. So this is the longest I've waited for a light build, and it's like looks the exact same. So yeah, and because I guess the thing is with this resolution setting, because here's the thing, because this is what I'm going to get into next, of why doing it even on the highest setting is probably not even, like, I probably won't need to do that. Because the reason why they have these different quality levels is this all does things like light bounces and things like that, right? When you do it on preview, it's the lowest quality, like the shadow. I don't know if the shadow resolution is affected by this. It doesn't seem like it, but it seems like the highest version, what I imagine it's supposed to be doing is that it does more light bounces and makes the occlusion higher quality and stuff. But you'll notice that that isn't happening in my scene. And that's probably why it doesn't look any different from the preview version. And that's because some of the work I've done this week is I figured out how to finally turn off the baked GI bounce light stuff. Because I remember last week I was frustrated and flustered because every time I would bake lighting, it would add in this extra bounce lighting that I didn't want. Because I wanted the shadows to all be one color. And I said, because we were looking at Persona, and we were looking at some like Pokemon game and Digimon. And I was looking at those, and I know that some of the games look vertex lit, but we were looking at Persona, and that game is Unreal raster lit with GI, but they didn't have the Unreal look to it. And I was trying to figure that out, and I think I figured it out finally. So there's like a setting I've got in my light, and this is probably why I could even get away with doing it at lower quality, because it's not doing any bounces. So actually baking light, not only is the scene itself going to be lower poly anyway, but there's no bounce lighting. So doing it on full settings is not even like, you don't even have to do it. You could literally just do it on preview and it's faster. So it's like, anyway. So on this light here, I've got this little thing at the bottom. I figured out how to finally change this. It's in this fold. You have to open up this fold and then there's a setting for like, bounce light intensity or indirect light intensity, and then there's a few other settings that I've just turned off. Like I hover my mouse over it down the bottom here, right? And any option that says will this will increase GPU time or something, any option that says that, I just turn it off. So it's like, oh, disabling this can save GPU time. Okay, turn off. And that's what I've done here. Because yeah, I've never looked at these settings because it's underneath this fold that like I didn't know was there. I thought this was all the settings you got. And then yeah, there's this indirect light intensity. So the default is 1, which gives you all the bounce lighting and whatever, and you can turn it up even higher. But I don't want any of that. I want none of it. So that's why you'll notice with the lighting, if I turn the post-processing off, it'll look even more, because the post-processing's doing some of the heavy lifting here, right? But if I turn off, how do I disable post-processing? Enabled. It's still putting... Why is it still putting... Oh yeah, so I want to turn... Yeah, so if I turn this off now, you'll notice, and if I turn off the materials, which I know there's an option for this somewhere... Lighting only. Yeah, so if I turn off the Fresnel effect and everything, you'll look at this lighting, right? And it kind of looks like... should I say it? I'm going to say something that's going to sound wild, but I think I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it, guys. This actually kind of looks like a Unity game. I know, don't lose your mind. But it kind of does, but that's what I want, right? Because I don't know if you got... For those that were here last week, we were looking at old screenshots from Unity 3 before real-time CE, GI, whatever, was a thing. We were looking at back in the old rendering pipeline with DX9. We were looking at some of those pictures, right? And I'll get a picture... For those that didn't catch that stream, I'll find the pictures. We were looking at these... For reference, now these are all new. Oh, this one. Yeah, we were looking at this specific one. Can I get a full res version of this, please? There we go. We were looking at stuff like this, right? And this is like, it has the quintessential Xbox 360 game look. And it has some AO in there, and it has baked lighting, but it doesn't look like, it doesn't look like slop, like Unreal 5, whatever. And yeah, there's reflections even. But there's something about it that's more artistic. And I remember I was like going nuts on stream last week trying to figure out what was going on. And I don't know, I had an inkling of an idea that it had something to do with the GI. So now I've just turned it off in Feline, and this is the look, this is how my old Unity projects used to look when I started, when I was like 11 years old trying to learn game dev. This was the kind of lighting you'd get, right? It was literally just diffuse objects. Shadow was all one color everywhere. You didn't have this thing where it was adding in dark blotches underneath the stairs or whatever. It wasn't doing any of that. It's just literally diffuse only, which is like, I know most people don't like this look, but this is what I want. And then when you turn on the materials and the Fresnel shader, it adds that little rim lighting on the edge. That's why I've got the cylinder here, by the way, to show you that sort of idea. So if we go back to lighting, you see how this edge completely fades into the background? And that's sort of what Baked GI is supposed to help with, is that it's meant to kind of help you judge depth better, because these shadows wouldn't consume each other and blend into each other. But that's where the Fresnel shader comes in, where you've got this rim here that's clearly visible. And then if you actually had textures on this, it'd be even better, right? But that's sort of closer to what I've been trying to achieve for a long time. And all it took was not adding things, but turning off a bunch of things and taking things out, which is just so funny. Like, I always thought for the longest time that, if I just add the right thing, but no, it's if I subtract the right thing. That's sort of what is more going on here. So even in the interior for this, right, Last week, this used to all be overlit with GI, and it looked like an Unreal thing going on. But now it's just normal, and it's like, this is cool. I like it. And if I turn on the graphics up a bit, because I had it on low, by the way. I had this on low graphics, by the way. If we turn it up to high, you'll notice that it does add a bit of ambient occlusion to the edges, and that's because I've deliberately added in, like, screen space ambient occlusion, because I've noticed that Persona and a few of these other games will do that. And also, for whatever reason, I think because I've turned off GI, it doesn't let me bake ambient occlusion anymore. So now in-game, with the nice bloom and everything, I have, like, a deliberately put screen space thing so that the corners... It kind of adds that gradient effect we were talking about, too. And I tried doing the world space gradient before, but it was kind of not going to work on backdrop, like walls and floors and stuff. But I think it will work on props. But for the meantime, to simulate that gradient look, I'm just using screen space ambient occlusion instead, which is, like, pretty cheap now. Like, it used to be a cutting-edge effect, but that was, like, you know, in 2007, it was a cutting-edge effect. But now it's like everyone wants HBAO or whatever. I don't care. SSAO is fine. I like SSAO. I like how this looks. So if we look around in-game with the nice bloom and everything on it, I don't know, like it has a more... I feel like I could take a screen cap of this and I could recreate this with the box tool in Photoshop, which is what I want, right? Like, that's how I want it to look. It needs to look as if someone could remake this in 2D in Photoshop or something by using the shape tool and just gradients. That's the point. That's how it should look. And, man, it's taken me a long time of trial and error to finally... It feels like finally we're getting away from the Unreal look finally this time, which it feels very cool. I like it. But yeah, if we go and look at some of this geometry like this, like, I don't know if it's just me, but if you imagine like a material on it, like a texture that had some hand-drawn specular on it, with this as a base to go on with this kind of lighting, I think it would hold up pretty convincing, right? Because the thing is as well, the advantage that baked lighting has that real-time lighting doesn't do, and this annoys me so much with real-time lighting. Like, real quick, if I change the sun, if I change this to real time, to movable. So now it's real time. Now the shadows are sharp for some reason. But if we change this to a real time light, I think when you do it with specular materials in particular, you'll notice this. So it's a bit hard to see. But if I turn down the roughness, because I've got the full roughness on this material, but if I turn the roughness down to like 0.2, you'll see this thing that happens. And this is like a symptom of real-time light. Sakurami, thanks for the highlighted message. I posted a comment on YouTube about using 2 UV maps for your gradient. Would you be able to look into that? Oh, thanks for letting me know. Sorry, I just haven't had time to read comments lately. But I think I know what you mean. That would involve like making a separate texture for the object. I think that's like, just so I understand what you mean. You're saying, like, if I have this vault thing, for instance, and if I have one set of UVs for the texture, are you suggesting to put another channel of UVs on it and then have, like, a overlay gradient texture of some kind on it that overlays using the second UV channel on top of the texture? Is that sort of what you mean, Sakurami? Is that kind of it? Yeah, okay. Because the thing is, on the other hand, I do have some of that happening already with the with my first attempt, but I'll show you what I mean. I'll show you what I'm thinking, but I think I get what you're saying too. But if I put this on the base color rule, I'll get to the other specular thing in just a moment. But the I don't know why it's taken. Come on, Unreal, you can do it. It's only, there we go. So if I try to turn the gradient effect back on, I don't know if it's actually gonna... Did I break it? Have I broken this permanently? I've also taken... I told you guys I would clean this up eventually, so I've got it all organized now. Okay, so now that we've got the gradient effect back on, which, man, I have to figure out a way to get this to work. But if we look at it on a specific object, like it should be showing on here, actually. I can't really tell. Oh, Yeah, so I think I see the flaw with my... Because what is supposed to be happening is that per object, it's supposed to be applying this gradient. But I see where your thing has an advantage. Because the disadvantage with my method is that the gradient size is always the same. So that means it isn't until I make the object taller, I think, that the gradient would become obvious. Actually, even here, it's not that... It's meant to be a lot darker at the bottom. I don't know why it's... I don't know why that's not... Like, these walls are meant to have it. This wall has it. Because the idea... Because this is like one object here, right? So my game theory was that per object, it should be starting the gradient at the bottom of the top of the object bounds. That's what it should have been doing. For some reason, it doesn't seem to be doing that, though. Because I can't really notice the effect on any other object except that wall for some reason. Maybe it's something to do with... Maybe I've messed this up somehow. Oh, it could be the gradient. Yeah, hold on. If I go, like, object bounds or something... Object... What's the difference between these two? Local bounds. We'll just do object bounds. I think I have to do... Like, multiply this by the... Oh, no, I've got object scale here already. Okay, well, I don't know what's going on then. But I can see where your method would be... You'd be able to control it on the model instead of relying on the shader to do it, which I think I get what you mean. That probably would be maybe just as difficult to do as well. Because, yeah, that way, this wouldn't... Well, that's the thing, because this wouldn't work on walls, and I don't want it to anyway, which I guess is good. Because then I could make props like this. If I made this a static prop, like a barrel or something. Actually, we do have some props somewhere. Like these. If I was to make these... Oh, well, why did my camera zoom out like that? Oopsie. I must have clicked on the skybox. Yeah, like if I was to take one of these crates, for instance, and make this not cel-shaded and, like, static looking... then yeah, I'd be able to do the gradient and control how it looks on the box with the texture. So if I wanted maybe the gradient on one object to be slightly stronger, I could by just... Okay, I think I see what you mean. I'll definitely look into that, because it'll be a bit more manual labor, but I have been doing some things lately that might make it worth it anyway. We'll get into that a bit later, but I've been doing a bit of prop stuff as well. But yeah, that is smart, though, doing it with the gradient. It'll also look more handcrafted too, right? Which would be good. So with this lighting thing I was going to show, I don't know if it's like... I think I need to turn the specular up a bit for this to be obvious. Because there's this thing... Yeah, so things like this. So when you have like real-time lights... It does this thing where if you look at the sun on a certain angle, it like it makes the entire surface overwhelmingly bright. I'll turn it down a little. It's a bit much. But even when you turn it down, like the higher you turn it up, the more like diffused it is. But I don't know if you guys have noticed that, but when you have like a kind of like on this surface here on the top of this, right? Where it's when you have a real-time light, it's bouncing the photons into the camera or whatever the equivalent of what it's doing. And it looks inconsistent because it means if you look at the light from a certain angle, you're going to have this blob that you can't control unless you turn off the light somehow, which you don't want to do. But with baked lighting, it doesn't have this on it. Or I guess with no specular too, I guess it does the same. But it's I don't know why, but on some materials I've noticed, I think it's when you have normal maps or something, you'll notice it. Here it's like when I turn off the specular, it's less noticeable, but it does brighten slightly and it's not consistent, which is annoying. So I'm going to undo this back to what I had it at now. Just going to undo as far as... Okay, I'm out of undos now, so that should have fixed everything. Let's save that. So now it's the way I want it, right? Where it's just consistent. And what else was I going to show? Yeah, so let's have a look at this in the lab, shall we? Because this is just the outdoor testing, because it has a big direct light, so it's easier to see it. With the lab, however, it's a bit harder to test for this stuff. It does look a bit better, though, but it's a bit harder to judge because there isn't a sunlight anywhere. But yeah, we'll just wait for it to open. Is it possible to copy the same material and change the colors and UV of it? You'd have to create an instance for that, I think, which I might have to do anyway if I'm changing textures, but like, I guess the challenge there is I can either mess around with the, what would you call it? Like, the options are you either mess around with the shader to get it to do gradients perfectly, or you just texture it in by hand. The thing is, I don't know the exact combinations of nodes you would need to do it the way I want, because at the moment it's not doing it. I thought it was, though. That's the thing. I thought it was doing it until I looked at those walls and went, wait a minute, the gradient on one of these is stronger than the other, and I don't know why it's doing that. But I know that if I just did it with the texture, because I can already in my head imagine exactly how that would work. Like, I can close my eyes and tell you exactly step by step where you would click, what program you would open, where would you click, what tool you would use to make the gradient, and how to make the second UV map, and how to add it to the object. Like, I understand how to do that, and I could do that. But to fix up the shader, I don't know exactly what combination of nodes you need to do what I want it to. But I can picture the alternative. So, but anyway, so with the lab, so this is kind of how the lighting is holding up now. It doesn't look that much different to last week, because most of it was just material stuff. The thing is, because I think this is going to need a bit more work than just the materials being changed slightly for this to work. Hold on a sec. Let me just kill these guys. Because with the lab, I've been doing some more study on... There's the lab level in Kirby, and there's some other environment I've been studying. Half-Life, that's what it was. I was looking at Half-Life 1 in the Black Mesa facility, and I was looking at what was the name of the Kirby one? There was some lab in Kirby. I don't remember the name of it, but someone recommended it, and I've been looking at those two environments. I've got a tab open, actually. So, this isn't it. I don't know what it's called. I'm not a big Half-Life guy. I don't know exactly, but it looked something like this. But it didn't look like. Oh, it was this one. Yeah. Oh, it is called. Is it? Okay, it is called Black Mesa after all. But I've been looking at the color scheme for this level because I really like it, and I've been looking at. I don't know the name of the Kirby one. It's coming up with way less search results this time for some reason. Lab Discoverer, I think that's what it was. I think this, yeah, there's some pictures of this. I haven't played Kirby, so I don't know what the deal is exactly. But I've been studying some of these environments to, like, try to make mine better. Because there's something about these, right? Because at the moment, I think I can now recognize where this could be improved. Because these I didn't hand make these textures myself. These are licensed from some textures website, and they were better than what we had before, where it was just, textures.com photographs or Megascans photographs or whatever, which I'm never using those again, my god. So this was a step up from that, but it isn't. I think you guys can see it. It looks techy, but it doesn't look like a laboratory. It just looks like a Forerunner structure or something, right? So I've been trying to work out why it is that I don't look like a laboratory yet. Now, this to me looks... This is not the original. This is still cool, but this is a redone version. The original's in the corner, in the top corner. It's a bit more blue in the original. But the thing that's really cool about studying these is because now I know how BSP works, I can recognize what's actually going on and how they've built this thing. So I want to get the original one for a moment, because it's easier to... I want the original, but I want like a high-res... I don't know if that's going to be possible. Oh, here we go. Something like this. So the lighting isn't... This is a Nexus screenshot mod, but that doesn't matter. We're just looking at the geometry for now. Because the leap... At the end of last year, the leap I made forward was that I figured out how to actually make geometry like this. The only difference between this and mine is the lighting, color palette, and textures. But if you notice, the technique is the same. So you can see at the bottom here, they've got a trim texture that's just being used everywhere. they actually don't have a gutter texture. Like, they have a few different floor textures. They then have a gutter that separates the two floors. And then every single... Because I walked around in this level for like 10 minutes and noticed that every wall has this gutter texture at the bottom. So that's the trim. And then you've got like they've got a few different tiles that they use for the wall. So this wall has this green semi-random tile texture on it where the tiles are kind of uneven. And then they have another trim here, which is, again, that's not modeled in. That's literally just a trim texture. And then they replace it, the upper half, with just like a plain wall texture without any tile marks on it. The thing that's funny, though, is that this and this are probably made from the same texture, as in the actual overlay with the dust on it is the same. It's just on this one, they've drawn, what are they called? They've drawn seams in, and it isn't even that detailed. It's literally just a line of pixels that's darker, and then a line of pixels that's slightly lighter, and they've just drawn in those lines to make it look like tiles. And it's pretty convincing. Not gonna lie, it's pretty convincing. This is sort of how they used to do, like, the Windows 95 interface. I don't know if anyone is old enough to remember this, or, like, Windows 2000. You know, like, the Windows 2000 skin? You used to be able to do this on XP as well, where you could change it to the classic Windows skin. And this is how, like, old websites used to look. And it has, if you look at, like, the taskbar at the bottom here, right? I wish I could I zoom in more to that? If you look at it very closely, like, these buttons, when you look at them normally, they look like 3D buttons, but all that's actually happening here, why is it's blurring? My zoom is blurring it. Can I, like, give me a sec. Can I, like, turn off the blur? Can I turn this off? I don't know how to turn off the blur. It's adding this smoothing to it. I don't know how to... Yeah, get rid of that smoothing. Let's get that out of there. So now if I zoom in, it should be pixel... Okay, it's still adding this weird blur to it. I don't know why. But the, but this, if you... Oh man, because if it's adding all this smearing blur to it because of the Microsoft Zoom tool, but just ignore that for a moment and imagine it as just pixels. The only reason this looks 3D is because they're using a light row of pixels and then a dark row of pixels. And then this little divot here, they use a lot of these in old Windows, right? These little divots. That's literally just one line of black and one line of white. That's it. But because your eye gets fooled by it when you look at it from far enough away, you think you're fooled into thinking that, oh, this has volume, this has depth, like this little inset for the clock. Because what you do to make it look beveled outwards, you add the white edge, you add it on the left and the top, and then the black on the bottom and the right. And then if you want to make it look the other way, you just swap those around so that the white is on the bottom and on the right instead. And that's why the clock looks like it's set in slightly. So it's the same principle here, just with these some of these textures, with creating these trims. Because the way I was told to do it was that you have to sculpt it in. And I'm like, no, I'm not sculpting that in. That's ridiculous. If I can achieve the same look with 1 pixel and not a freaking nanite sculpted mesh, then, like, I'm gonna just draw... Yeah, so to lead into my next tangent here, the thing that I want to try next, and I don't want to spend too long on it, but I want to try next, maybe over the next week, is authoring some of my own textures to put in this environment. So I was using these textures to get a feel for, like, how I'm supposed to use textures in the first place, because it might seem obvious if you're an environment artist, but I'm not an environment artist. So for me, it's all new. I'm like, I'm starting to see the patterns now. I can observe the patterns now. But a month ago, if you showed me this picture, it's like, well, yeah, build this. I would have not known how to do it. But now I can recognize, to build something like this, you get 2 wall textures to alternate just so that it has some variety. You get a trim texture for the wall, and then some different floor textures that you alternate in between different sections. And then bits of decor like these vents. That's sort of the finishing touches stuff, which I don't have in my level yet. So, because they have more. They have, like, this whole like this corridor. This is a remake or a mod or something. The original is a bit more primitive. But you notice how it's like, these lights are not modeled. Like, these are literally just textures they've put on the roof. and they have a version that's lit and a version that's unlit. And every certain amount of grid denominations, they put a light. And then they have, I guess for Half-Life, they would have had a vertex light here to do something with it. But now that I know how to turn off bounce lighting, I think I could achieve the same look with point lights, but just not using, but having Unreal not add in all this GI stuff. I think I could achieve the same look like that. And then they have like, I think the main thing that I'm trying to think of is like the texture detail and the colors. Because the thing I like about this is that there's something about the hue of this level that looks very clinical and scary, if that makes sense. It looks ominous, you know? Like you're in here and it's the green. It's unsettling. You look around and it's like something's, you know, it feels creepy, right? I don't know if I'm the only person that gets that feeling. Because the original one in the corner here, it's more blue. It's a bit more calming. But the clinical green and white, it just sort of sets me on edge. I don't know what it is. I don't know if you see it too? Okay, cool. Because it's not just me. The Kirby level has a bit more blues in it. But the common theme I'm noticing with laboratory environments is that they have very cool colors. And I have some cool colors, but I think mine is sort of leaning more into purple, which wasn't really my intent with it. So now that I kind of know what I'm doing more, my next thing I want to challenge myself with is, can I make this greener? Can I maybe author my own wall textures and my own floor? Because this looks a little over-designed, like these walls. Like I like these textures, but I think these would look better for something else. And maybe if I had a more clinical tile that was less detailed, that was greener, and if I changed the light settings a bit to look greener and the fog, maybe I could get that that look better, if you know what I mean. Because yeah, like if you look at this level, and it's not that I'm trying to copy it necessarily, but because I want to try to find out how to put my own spin on this, but just the pattern I'm noticing with every person's rendition of a lab, like Kirby's and Half-Life's and whatever, is that the walls aren't, like, these aren't very detailed, really. They've got some of the creases drawn in for random shapes, and they just tile those. But they aren't really that insane. Because I want it to look more scary and unnerving. Like these pictures. This gives you that feeling, doesn't it? I don't know if it's just me, but you look at this, and it feels like witchcraft. You know? Like it feels dangerous, but I can't put my finger on what it is. I think part of the reason could just be because if you're not a scientist in here, you're surrounded by threats because you don't know what any of this is for. And that's probably what it is, if I had to put it to a word, is that it feels unfamiliar and threatening. Because this is the most anti-natural environment you could possibly get, right? Is this. So it should give you a vibe of discomfort. And they try to put in, like, you know, they try to give it the, like, because there's a cleanliness to it to compensate. Some of these labs have this sort of friendly, bright color thing going on to make you feel less uncomfortable. But all of the vials and the monitors with the code on it and stuff, like, it makes me feel like if I touch the wrong thing, I'm going to become a mutant or something, you know? Like, it feels scary. There was another, there's another reference I'm trying to think of. Because there is a good version of this I've seen. Because there's this picture. There's a specific one I'm looking. It's not this. There's a specific one I remember finding, and it was, yeah, this. Like, this is sort of the good ending version, where this is the only kind of hospital or medical or lab environment I've seen ever that doesn't look threatening because they've color themed it like a Windows Vista wallpaper. So that's like the only, I don't know what it is about using the colors this way, but when it's done this way, it feels safer. But when it's not done this way, when it's done like this, I don't know what it is, but it makes me feel like unsafe. But here I feel safe. I don't know what it is. Yeah, the Frutica Era Hospital. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Color theory hospitals. Fish in Project Feline. Oh, actually, don't tempt me. Don't tempt me. But even this environment, because I can see where I've gotten a bit wrong with my one. Because I think the biggest weakness, because every time I look at this, I notice something more wrong with it. That is what it's giving me a lot of motivation to get to the bottom of it. And one thing I've noticed that the reason this doesn't look very lab or because it's a medical lab. It's not a hospital necessarily, but it's meant to be a medical lab. And it doesn't look like one. It doesn't really look like anything yet. It has some things going for it, though. It has some merit insofar as that it looks like an otherworldly Quake map, which is cool. But I still want it to have some bearing in reality. A bit. At least with its theming. Not with its layout, because that's going to be boring, but with its theming. And I think what would look better, looking at these references now, because I'm noticing the patterns now, what would be better is for the ceiling, because at the moment I just put in with this random texture on the ceiling, and I have these trim lights on the side. I didn't really know where to put them, see? So I just put them on the sides, and then to light the scene, I used, I'll fly around in the normal view so I can actually touch the lights. Because I used rect lights, or rectangle lights everywhere, which I'm not sure if I'll do that still, because I've noticed that with rect lights, they, like this little underpass here, because I tried rebaking the lighting and turning off the bounce light stuff, but I think rect lights have to have bounce lights no matter what, because rect lights these are a weird kind of light. I like them insofar as that you can make a square out of them and just have them cast downwards. However, it's like too soft, I think. I don't know. I can't quite put my finger on what it is. But I've noticed that it makes the shadows very bouncy and soft, which is not that wasn't really what I was intending. But I mean, I might end up liking it, but I want to try maybe instead just using point lights instead. And what I would think to do here, right, I'd remodel this so that the roof would have a tile roof ceiling, and then every so often I need to make some kind of texture like these lights. So that, because at the moment there's no real light fixtures, which is probably why this looks weird, is because the hallway's being lit by something, but it's being lit by this thing, and there's no actual mesh for it. So it looks weird, because it's like, this really should be up on the ceiling, and it should be coming from an object, not just, from nowhere. And I think that's probably... I think if you just made those little changes, this would look way more finished than it looks now. That's my game theory, at least. That's just a theory, a game theory. But I really want to give that a go over the next week, because I don't know, because I'm looking at this now, because I've been kind of caught between a few different tasks this week. And now that I'm seriously looking at this, it makes sense of like, oh, they all use this kind of roof with this kind of light. I could make that. And it's making me real excited just looking at this stuff. Like even Kirby has it. I didn't notice this before, but even Kirby's level has it. On the very top here, they have the same roof going on. So, and that isn't too hard to make. I don't imagine it's that hard to make a roof tile like this, right? And I want to try and give those a go in that Wally tool in particular. Because the thing I've been kind of afraid of with hand authoring textures is because you can go overboard. And with textures like this, I don't know how to paint like this. Which is why I've tried to avoid having to hand paint stuff. But what I want to try, and I want to give this a shot. I don't know if it'll look any good. But I want to try drawing them in like pixel art with this Wally texture editor that they use for the Quake maps, with a limited color palette and limited resolution. And I just want to see how it looks and then upscale it later type thing. Because my theory is that if I try to do 4K textures straight away, because I've tried doing this for another project before, and I know that it's like, if you give yourself a 4K canvas and unlimited colors, it's way too easy to get sidetracked. And this used to happen to me. Like the last project I worked on solo, where I actually did the textures, I hand painted all my own textures for it. And it was a lot of work because I just didn't really know what to do and I had too much freedom. So I spent too long like over perfecting the texture and adding, like, I didn't really have an intent. I didn't have like a, why does this line have to be here type thing. I didn't have any of that going on. And it was I had too many options. I had too much freedom. So what I want to do is like, if I would, like, for example, if I wanted to remake a texture like this, with Wall-E, you only get like 64 pixels and limited colors. And it's like, could you make something that has a good impression first before adding in 4K detail? Because that's sort of the... this goes into another topic that I'll save for a bit later. But when I was doing Gabi's model, for instance, a lot of it came down to nailing the impression first and then adding detail. And every time I've done hand-done textures in the past, I didn't get that principle yet. So I would start with the detail and get overwhelmed and hate texturing. But these textures, however, you don't need a 4K canvas and 16 million colors to make textures like this. Like, I could already imagine in my head, in Wall-E, drawing like a noise texture with like 3 colors and then adding those seams with just a black and white row of pixels, like adding these seams, which is like, takes less time and it's easier to get a read on. Because the thing that you got to keep in mind is, because the thing I want it to look, I want it so that when you blur your eyes, it still looks good. That's sort of the standard I'm aiming for. Because this is sort of what this level has going on. That's why this level looks so good, right? Is that you look at like screenshots like this from a game that's like 20 years old. And yes, this particular screenshot is perfect because it's very deep fried and it's very low res. But you still get the impression that it's a laboratory, right? Even though it's like a 240p image. You get what I mean? So my logic now, after having made Gabi's model, I finally kind of woke up to this being a thing. And like the real goal should be, can you nail the impression in low resolution first? And if you can't do it, you're doing it wrong. I think that's what's going on. And that's why I always found texturing to be so overwhelming, because I wasn't focused on the initial impression. Because when you only have this many colors or whatever and this many resolution, all you can focus on is the composition and the colors, which is precisely the weak point right now with this level, is that it's detailed, it's more detailed than Half-Life, but the colors aren't quite right. And the feeling, the impression is, it's like slightly better, but it isn't all the way. So anyway, that's my little ramble about low-res texturing and stuff, but because it's exciting. I don't know, there's something exciting about it. Because if you can make this, because one guy could do this now, like maybe not in 1999, but today one person could do this. And it's like, it forces you to only notice the impression. And that's kind of the that key element, that's like the difference between this big thing that everyone is noticing now with like the attitude of the Unreal 5 dev versus the attitude of whatever the other thing is. Like, you've got the AAA attitude of everything has to be super detailed for no reason. And they miss the forest for the trees insofar as that they're so focused on the 4K detail that they forget the impression, and then the impression's bad. And that's what we see happening now. That's why everyone hates, like, whatever... What games have come out this year? Like, Dragon Age and... what's the other... I don't know all the... See, they're so forgettable, I don't even remember the names. Dustbound or something. I don't know, like... even the impressions of the names are forgettable too, but... like, a lot of the modern stuff, it's like... it falls into the trap of losing the forest for the trees, getting fixated on how high-res sculpted everything is, and they miss the impression completely. Whereas back then... the reason why so many games hit so hard back then is that the technology was so limited that you could only focus on the impression. And that's all you had. So you had no option but to get it right, because you couldn't have fidelity come in to save you. So I don't know, like, I think that's cool. I think there's something about that attitude that feels right that I want to lean more into. So that doesn't mean the final result is going to be Half-Life 1. That's not what I'm saying, but I think if I'm going to be authoring my own textures, I have to start at Half-Life 1, and then if it looks good, because remember, I haven't done this yet. maybe this is actually a bit harder than I think it is. Maybe it's actually very easy to make a bad pixel art texture, but you will know instantly if that's the case. If you only have 60 pixels and if you do it bad, you will notice immediately, and the entry cost is way lower than doing a 4K texture immediately. Because if you get this wrong, it takes like 2 minutes to open another canvas and try again, because you only have 16 colors or whatever. Like, the iteration time is faster. So it means it's faster and faster to try again and again and again until you get the color right, or whatever details you need to get right, you get them right. And then once that's done, you then don't change the colors, and then you can add the detail later. That's because that's how I did Gabi's model. This is how I know that this is a true thing and real, is that this is the exact thing I did with Gabi's model. For those that remember, when I was doing her on stream, I started with a blocky low poly version that looked ugly, and then over time I got the proportions correct first. I got the head size right, I got the silhouette right, I got the poses right, and then once that was right, I then added the detail, and then that, I had to have the detail not ruin the impression. And then I just kept adding and adding until it kind of got to this. With her old model, I made the opposite mistake, though, right? Is that I went too detail first. I didn't do the impression first. Anyway, so it's a topic I've been thinking a lot lately, because the other thing I've been working on this week is the devlog about Gabi's model. And this actually has the same idea in it. And I'm just trying to work out the best way to explain it, because that is a huge video. It's a very big video that's in the works. It's about an hour and a half long so far. So I'm trying to trim it down, because no one is going to watch an hour and a half of that. So I'm working on that. But that's why I'm particularly passionate about this concept of the impression, because that was a key ingredient in that. It's going to be a key ingredient in this upcoming video that I'm literally just noticing now that the same principle applies to everything else beyond her model. It'll apply to these textures and everything too, that's why I'm so happy, because it synergistically matches, you know what I mean? Yeah, I mean, that's really what art direction is, right? That's a good way of putting it, Perpetual. Art direction, because it's a vague, nebulous word if you don't really understand what it means, right? Like, I didn't really understand what that meant first. I thought it meant following orders of the lead artist. That's what I thought art direction was, where it's like, I do whatever my superior tells me, but I don't have a superior, so that doesn't quite work for me. But because what it's really about is something else. It's the intent. Oh, thanks so much, Fox8, for the 20.
You need to go back to the beginning.
To the beginning? To the beginning of what? Back to the beginning of what? That's such an ominous... What? To the beginning of what? What does he mean? What did he mean by this? Oh, of game dev. Back to the beginning. Oh, I see what you mean, yeah. Yeah, dude, game devs today, man, they have to go back to 1990 to... Let's get back to... Where was it? Half-Life 1. This is where we gotta go back to, guys. We gotta go back here. In the beginning... God made Half-Life, and he saw that it was good. Now, like, because the thing is, right, is that, like, 10 years ago, I would have never have played this game, because kids these days, they don't know how to appreciate good craftsmanship. They'll look at this and go, oh, people used to play this, lol. But dude, this actually looks really good. Like, the textures make sense, the colors make sense. It's just, yeah, the face is held back a bit, but even this has some charm to it. Like, he looks like a comically mad scientist, and that's cool. I don't know, but yeah, we got to go back to the beginning. We got to go back. Yeah, we got to go back to before graphics. We got to go back to Pong. Yeah. But I don't know, like, I'm not crazy though. I'm not old man yelling at clouds. This has merit to it. This is art direct. Like, even the first, like, because I played this for like the first time this week. Just this opening segment when you're in this cart thing, this is textured so beautifully, man. Like, the colors of the seat cushions, they look like jelly beans, and I want to gobble them up. Like, they look delicious. they have this beautiful, like, shiny hand-painted specular on it. Beautiful hand-painted occlusion. Even though it's, like, you know, deep-fried as hell. But it has, like, the rim lights painted in. It's got the rims painted in. And it's just, I don't know, it just looks nice, dude. I don't know how to... I can't say much about it. It just looks cool. Don't let Raymond see the textures tile for Raymond's face. What? You guys making textures of me now? Let Gabi play Doom. Yeah, I gotta get Gabi playing these games, guys. That's what I gotta do. But, you know, I forgot what tangent I was on now. But I think, because I had some thoughts on this I wanted to share. I can't remember them now. I'll just read chat for a little, but I'll remember it in a moment. The corporate setting, says Cosmic, the complete opposite of natural. I mean, yeah, it is a bit. Oh, thanks so much, Luca, for the 5.
I believe if you change the textures in the skybox, you could get closer to the look you want, like a more greenish and darker skybox.
Yeah, now, funny thing, I actually should get rid of the skybox in the first place. Or not. Actually, wait, that did do something. Oh, yeah. So the thing is, this was an accident. This skybox isn't actually meant to be here. But what I learned later, because I noticed that the skybox changes the ambient color. It turns out you actually don't need a skybox to do this after all. Because the skybox object has an object inside it called the skylight. And this is the bit you actually need. The actual sky... Because this is all interior, I don't actually need the sky. So what I could do is just drag this... Can I copy and paste this outside? Skylight. Let me change the scene. Thanks so much for the 5, by the way. If I go to lighting, put in skylight, because you have to set the settings to a specific way. So if I go here... I could probably... I think these are mostly the default settings even. So you change like the ambient... Well, even... Yeah, so we'll get rid of this, right? You take this and you make it static. And then now we can actually get a lot of control over the ambient color. So I could make this green. And we'll change the intensity to 2 just for... And we'll turn off cast shadows. That's the key thing I noticed too, is that cast shadows, when you turn it on, it adds in the... It adds like the ambient occlusion, global illumination shadows, which I don't want. So I've turned that off for the other new levels. I might even just change this back to 1, because if you turn shadows off, you probably don't need the intensity that high. But if I change this to just green, I don't know. Let's see what happens. Let's see it. I don't know. I'm curious. But thanks so much for the 5. Feels like a containment facility. I mean, yeah, it's... So the lore... Because I should probably talk more about it, but... the thing is, I don't like talking about the game's lore, because I know everyone wants me to, but I kind of don't like... I kind of want to just savor it. And, like, getting to talk about the lore, I feel like you're not meant to do that when the game's still being made. For me, that's the reward when the game's finished. Is that after it's done, then I can indulge in the lore, and I can like have fun. I'll turn up I got to turn up the intensity a bit more. Let me just turn up the intensity. But in terms of like what I can share about this level is that it's supposed to be a like genetic lab containment facility, and Gabi is escaping from it. That's the synopsis of this level. As for why she's there, I don't want to get into that. I don't want to get into the lore why she's there. But she's meant to... It's like a breakout type thing. So yeah, now that I've changed I don't know, maybe the bounce light needs to be more intense, because the shadows are pretty dark. But it does look more green. You were correct. It's just because... I think it's because the point lights are not very intense. So if I change the intensity to 4, I'm curious what will happen. So yeah, most of like my experimenting with this has just been playing with the settings and getting just getting it to look right. Oh, thanks for that. I forgot I had posture check on my Twitch. I forgot about the points. Thanks so much for that. Oh, god damn it. Guys, look. This is just... Oh, I am not the Messiah. Shut up. I'm not the Messiah. This is just basic stuff. This is like what everyone should know, okay? The only reason I don't know this is because I'm an idiot. But like, everyone that studied this, which is like not, I don't know, I haven't done this, but I'm guessing some of you guys are probably like super into this stuff. Like, everyone should, this is like, this shouldn't be like, everyone should know this stuff. Like, that's, like, people in the 90s knew it. I don't know it because I didn't, like, I'm teaching myself this now, but if I had known about it 10 years ago, I would have done it then. But, you know, I didn't have a mentor telling me how to do everything. But everyone that does, like, everyone that's being trained right now, like, this should be, like, I don't understand why this is, like, divine knowledge. It's not. It's just basic. No, shut up. Okay. We gotta stop, guys, we gotta stop this meme. Okay, I don't want to lead a holy war on game dev right now. I don't want to do it. Know what? Oh, like, you know, what art direction is, and, like, not just chucking on detail for no reason, and picking colors on purpose. Like, I don't know, like, that seems... Like, I'm a little amazed it's not common sense, but I know for me it's because I don't have a teacher, so for me it's a bit different, because my limits is what I can find, and what I can teach myself, and whatever resources I have available. But that's not most people. Most people aren't teaching themselves. Most people have a mentor, or they're going, because I've taught at some of these courses, and I've seen like a lot of, like, there's a few other people that I know that are like studying game dev to be a game artist or whatever, and like they don't know this stuff, and I don't know why, because they're paying all this money. That, like, what else would they be being taught? Like, if they're not learning this, then what are they being taught? Which I don't understand. I don't understand. Like, I don't know. I don't get it. So I don't know. Like, to me, this is amazing stuff, but I'm not, like, I'm like the bottom of the totem pole. So of course anything is going to look amazing to me. But to someone that knows what they're doing, this should not be like, this shouldn't be impressive. Like, it should be like standard of like, yeah, of course you pick your colors, dummy. Like, that's what I'm expecting everyone else to say. But then you guys are in here calling me like the Lisano Gaib or whatever. It's like, no, this isn't that level, right? Like, there's no way. Like, this is what, like, I have to believe on some level even the AAAs know this, right? That, I don't know. Again, I'm not an expert, guys. I'm not the Messiah, so I don't know. I'm just really amazed at it myself, but I'm an idiot, so if everything's gonna look impressive to me. But yeah, I can see what you mean now. Who was I? Luca, I can see what you mean. It does have a more greener look, but the textures are too grey, which is why it lacks that medical feeling to it. But yeah, I'll have to play around. But it's really more to do... maybe, I don't know, maybe it is the skybox, actually, because I'm just noticing... Oh no, because what you can do is you can then add a cube map, and then you can pick like a super bright texture like this. We'll try doing that again, because now it'll be even brighter. Okay, because I know that on the old skybox, I had the cube map plugged in manually, which is why the ambient light was so... That was probably why it was so bright. Okay. See, yeah, see, I'm not an expert. See, a real expert would know what these settings do and how to use them without having to play around and experiment, trial and error. They do the trial and not commit the error and get it right the first time. Now it's really green. That's a 2 green. So if we turn that down a bit... If we go static for a second so that we don't have to keep baking it, you'd want to pick something. Now, I'm just doing it randomly, and this is what I don't like either, because this contractor I had, man. Because I had a document. Now, because don't do it like this. I'm just playing around. What you should have is like a document or something that has the colors already picked. And I remember when I had this contractor doing the colors for the old lab, when they were doing materials and they were making like an orange trim, instead of color picking the orange from the document, they just hand did it and they picked the wrong orange. And it's like, oh, big deal, it looks the same. But it's like, no, it's not the same, because you notice how if I move my mouse a few pixels off, now this is more red and this is more yellow. That stuff matters, okay? Like, if you have an entire scene and you have orange trims everywhere, but each trim is like one of them is slightly redder than the other for no reason... Like, that's... no. Like, ew. Like, don't, no. So this is why I kind of hate that by default it gives you a big color picker. Because what it should do, what it would be awesome, is that if it just had blocks of color, like in MS Paint or something, where you only get a limited amount of colors you can choose. Because every pixel besides the one I want is an opportunity to pick the wrong color. Right? So this is why I really hate this color wheel. Because this is the default. It encourages you, oh yeah, man, no problem. Just pick one of 16 million colors right now. And it's like, no, you don't want to, no. You don't pick it like this from like this is too easy to pick the wrong color like this. So what I like to do, I don't have it on me right now, but I probably need to make a new one of these anyway, is an actual palette with just discrete colors on it and nothing else. With, you know, RGB values. Because when I don't have that, the alternative of what I do is that I will go in and just type in the numbers manually. Because for Gabi's suit color, for instance, I've memorized the exact RGB that it's supposed to be. It's 220 with like 0.8 saturation and 0.8 brightness. Or, no, hold on, it's 0.4. That's sort of like Gabi's suit. Something like this color. It's 220 hue there, like, because I've just memorized it. But that's not what you're going to be doing most of the time, right? So we'll try this. We'll try like I want to try baking it one more time because I'm just very curious now with this sort of. And again, I really should get a proper thing, like a proper palette for this. But just intuiting it, we'll just see. Anyway, yeah. So I've got over the next week, because I'm going to be trying to do a new set of textures for this level, and I'll pick out a palette then, because you can't just pick random. You got to be kind of careful with it. So I want to try to make sure I'm picking the right greens, the right blues, and the whatever. And yeah, I want to spend some actual proper time on it first. Okay, well this is way too blue. See, this is what I mean. That's why I hate the color picker. But anyway, but yeah, I'll definitely though I'll look more into skylighting and stuff. But yeah, I think the main thing is going to be modeling in actual light fixtures on the roof and placing the lights more, because I literally rushed through this for the video so that I would have the scene would be lit to like the bare minimum. But it is the bare minimum. That's why it doesn't look amazing. Now there was like another topic I had. I'm trying to remember what it was. Oh, because most of the work here has just been on materials and changing Unreal settings to not do bounce sliding. There was one more level that I tried this on as well, just an outdoor area. Because the tricky thing is that a lot of the things I was looking at does rely on prop placement too. So this was just another example of one of my other older levels relit with these new settings. And even this, like, it gives you a rough impression of what an outdoor scene would be with more detail, because the example scene doesn't really have any buildings or whatever. But this was a level from a while ago, and I haven't really touched it much because I've just been busy with the others. But this at least gives you some idea of using this new master material with the Fresnel shading, how it looks on something with buildings that has more detail. And I kind of like how it looks. Like, I know that it hasn't got textures on it, but if you just look at the way it's shaded with the pillars and stuff. Oh, Luca, thanks so much for the 5 once again.
There was a Game Boy Color palette I've used once, if you want to test. The colors were hashtag 111E25, number 386,857, hashtag 88B75, and hashtag E0F71.
Righto. Let me type that out. Dude, thanks for being so precise. A Game Boy palette, you say? I don't know what that means. I don't know what a Game Boy palette is. I guess we'll find out. I'm just going to write this down for later. A8BE75 and E0F71. Thank you. Only 4. That's actually impressive. I'm guessing you could get a lot out of whatever these are. 11E25. 38. Just making sure I've got that right. 386857. Yeah, okay, cool. I'll save that. I'll check that out when I'm experimenting next. Thank you. Green hues. Okay. Oh, like the Game Boy screen. Okay. See, I never really was into the portable Nintendo handheld scene, so I don't really... What is the... Because what model of Game Boy was this? Game Boy could only do 4 colors. Oh. We're gonna search this up. This wasn't the Game Boy Color, was it? Or... Because again, I don't really know. Because I didn't have a Game Boy. Oh, where are you guys? Oh, before the Game Boy Color. What was the one before? Was it just called the Game Boy? Oh, okay. So like this, with like the different hues of green type thing. Okay. Uh-huh. Dude, these actually look sick, not gonna lie. These consoles look freaking awesome. Anyway, I better minimize this. I'm gonna go on a 2-hour tangent about Game Boys and how cool the design looks if I look at that too long. But that's pretty cool. That man, what a great idea. Using the Game Boy screen as a color palette for something that isn't on a Game Boy. That's actually pretty clever. Nice. But yeah, so in terms of the actual material stuff, you can really see it on this side of the building here, where you can see it fading into the fog like this. And that's I did some fixing with the Fresnel, because, yeah, so that's what it was. Because I remember, I'm like, I did something to the Fresnel. I can't remember what it was. I remember it now. Because someone recommended, I think right when I was about to head off, someone last week said that I was using the Fresnel wrong because I was applying it as an emissive color, when what I should have been doing was multiplying it with the base color of the texture. So I've done that instead now, which is why it probably looks better. So I've got the grid texture. I've got this function is the thing that tiles it properly so it isn't stretched. And then I've got just a base hue shift for the Fresnel. I've got the mask for it. And then it does something in here. I think it's this. It multiplies... Yeah, here it blends the color with the multiplied on top of the... Yeah, it overlays it on top of the texture itself. So the Fresnel color accentuates the color of the actual texture. So that's why it looks less washed out, if that makes sense. Like if you do it on this grid. If it was before, this would look desaturated the further along the edge you'd get. But now it doesn't. It looks better now. And yeah, on the shadow parts too, because it adds the shadow on top. So it has this blue shift of the shadows when you do it from this angle, like this. So that's why it looks a bit better now. I totally forgot I had done that. So you can see it even in this little corridor area here. You can see even without the fog doing anything, it's got the gradient to the horizon, which, like, I know it doesn't seem like that incredible, but I was like really happy when I figured this out, because I kept noticing this effect in every reference I found, in every anime backdrop I found. It had this gradient, and I was like, how the hell do they do that? And well, I know how they do it. I know they draw it, but I can't just draw it on. I'm like, how am I going to do that in 3D? So that's why I'm like really, really super just happy about the fact that I got this to work. So yeah, and looking at it with more detailed geometry, because the other level, it doesn't really show it off as well, because it's just ceilings and walls. But especially in these interiors, you can see the gradient shift here too. And especially from the floor, like this specific shot where I rotate it and you can see the benches here and you see the gradient fade to the horizon. I don't know, man. It just looks satisfying to me so much. And I'm like, oh, finally, I've got the gradient going. So I don't know. I just feel very happy that I finally did it. So there was something else I was going to bring up. I did go back into Trench Broom very briefly this week. Let me open what I was doing. I was trying to do this thing with Trench Broom, because apparently, if I want to do... Because the thing is, when I did my own textures last time, I had to make my own WAD file and import it into the map. and I had to learn this other program to pack WADs with. Now, apparently, there is a quicker way to do it without needing to do that. So I tried investigating that, but I didn't have much luck, unfortunately. I'm just trying to minimize some of my windows here. So I did go back into TrenchBroom very briefly, and I'm just using the same map file as before, but I spent a bit of time trying to convert this to a not Quake map, because with TrenchBroom, you have that thing where when you start a new map, it gives you like what game, like here. It's like select a game, and different games will have different presets. So the thing is, I just used Quake initially because I could put WADs in the Quake maps. Because when I picked any other preset, like generic, it couldn't, like the actual option to add a WAD file wasn't there. And I was like, oh, why isn't it there? So I just used the Quake one instead, and I could add in the WAD file so that I could add the textures. But apparently that's wrong. Apparently what you're supposed to do is you have to make your own game preset that has I don't know the name, I can't remember the name of it, but it's like a declaration file, like an FDL file or something. I don't know if that's the correct acronym, but it's like a file that defines the parameters of what you can add to the scene. And it just so happens that the Quake preset ones has already been pre-configured to add WAD files. But I tried writing my own one, and I've even got a little icon for it for feline. And what it's supposed to let you do if you set it up right, it's because I read the documentation, but I still can't figure it out. But what it's supposed to let you do is it's supposed to let you define and import your own entities. So, for instance, if I wanted to have jump pads from the game in TrenchBroom, I think you're able to do stuff like that. So instead of having to do the meshing in Unreal, to do it in TrenchBroom and then take it to Unreal and then add the entities like jump pads and checkpoints afterwards in the Unreal editor, supposedly, if you set this up properly, you can do it all just in TrenchBroom, which would be way better because of the grid tools. Because going in afterwards and placing checkpoints in Unreal is a pain. I hate it because the grid, the domination, whatever, no, that's not the right word. The denomination of the grid in Unreal is different than TrenchBroom. So the grid doesn't align to what I've done in TrenchBroom and Unreal. It's super annoying. So I want to be able to do that because that's the proper way you're supposed to do it. But I don't know, because I've tried defining a file, but for whatever reason, when I open a new map in it, it just doesn't work. So that was a bit of troubleshooting this week. I just had to drop it for the moment because I was spending too long on it. So for the meantime, I just ended up going back to the original map in the Quake So this is where this comes from, by the way. So that's why I've got this Quake-looking guy in the level, because this is the player spawn. And you'll notice that the model is not a BSP model, because that's the thing that I want to be able to do, is because apparently you're able to import your own models, like custom models, if you have your own entities on this sheet or whatever. But I can't figure it out yet. I haven't figured out how to do it. I've read the docs. It doesn't make any sense to me. I've tried and bashed my head a bit. I still don't get it. So at the moment, I'm just proceeding ahead as I was. But I have tried to create some props. And I only spent like an afternoon on this because I had other stuff to do. But I have... I've tried to make like a computer... now, the textures aren't final, but I've tried to make like a computer terminal thing. And I don't know how I'm going to place these in the level yet. I've just got them at the beginning here. Because one thing I've noticed, that to go back a little on what we were saying earlier with the gradient effect with anime backgrounds, I don't know if it's going to come up on a Google search or not. There was a game we were looking at. It was like Pokemon City game or something like that. Not this. That was like a 3D. Maybe it was this. But like what I noticed was with these, yeah, like this. This is a good example. Is that with these types of levels, because that world space gradient, you can see it here on the bookshelves and you can see it on the stair railing. The thing is that I remember having a tough time trying to understand how that looked so good. And it dawned on me that it's because they actually have props and not just a wall and a ceiling like me. So part of what I want to do in tandem with textures is adding actual props and like doing an actual meshing pass to the level. Because at the moment, this is really still a block out just with textures put on it, but it's still a skeleton. So I was just thinking, I had like an hour and I was like, could I like quickly make up a prop that I could put somewhere? So I tried making like a approximation of a computer terminal just using the BSP tools and not using Blender. Because with Blender, yes, you can make more higher fidelity models, but it's the same problem with doing hand-done textures, is that you have so much. And I know if I was going to do this in Blender, I would get super distracted by like, oh, I could add a little crease. I could model in a little crease here. I could model in the keyboard keys, each key. I could model in the... And it's like, no. Because Blender it won't stop you. Blender, if you do it in Blender and you think, oh, but I could model in each individual keyboard key, Blender's not going to stop you. And it's like, yeah, man, do what you want. But then you've just wasted all this time modeling a keyboard that didn't need to be modeled. So I did this deliberately in TrenchBroom so that I could only get very basic primitives only. And then it's like, well, if I want a keyboard there, I'm going to have to make a texture, which is better because it's lower poly and it's just less work to do it as a texture. And it doesn't need to be more detailed. So it doesn't look amazing yet. I know this looks pretty bad still, but I'm kind of just because I don't like modeling props. I'm going to be real. I don't like doing it. I hate it. I don't like prop modeling at all. But my logic is, if even someone like me can put up with modeling props in TrenchBroom, then that's going to be an easier way to get me through it. It's like, how do you get the guy that hates modeling props to model props? And something like this is sort of how you would do it, is that you give them the option to do it where they can't get it wrong. Like, you can't possibly make this over-detailed. It can only be as much as it needs to. The thing is that I know it looks very Half-Life 1-esque right now, but with textures, you won't notice that it's that bad. Like, it's hard to see now. I've literally just only used the environment textures as a temporary fill. But if you imagine an actual computer screen, like, you know, like like a green matrix code overlay, if you imagine that where this grill is, and then you imagine just like an IBM keyboard texture in this area, and then if you just imagine like a white concrete fill for the sides, and then maybe I should make some kind of chair for this too. I should probably make a chair. And if I was to make some kind of chair, like, because it's a background object, you shouldn't even really be looking that closely at it in the first place. And secondly, if you're only going to be looking at it from your periphery, and the textures and the low poly is enough to convince you in the periphery that it's a computer terminal, then that's all it needs to do. You don't need to have like a 4K nanite computer terminal, because that kind of, like, I don't know. I don't think I have to, like, you guys get what I mean, right? Like, it's because that's the thing, is that that's the one thing I don't like about Blender, because it has a place, but I don't like using it for props and for environment things like this, because it doesn't stop you. It lets you do whatever you want, and I don't want to do whatever I want. I want to do what needs to be done, and nothing more. So I'm going for the most conservative, safe, like, the most low detail thing possible. Because, again, it's about the impression. If with textures eventually, because that's something I'll get to, but if with my own textures in this model, if it can't look like a computer terminal, then I'm wasting my time. It means that if I go into Blender and try to add in more, it's just a waste of time. Like, that's the way I'm thinking about it now. So with that in mind, maybe because the thing is, because I don't like modeling props, I've only thought of one idea for now. So I don't know, maybe if you guys have more suggestions and ideas for props I could put in, like, I don't know, lockers or something like that, or maybe I should look at Half-Life for some inspiration. I respect the restraint, says Loose of Legends. I mean, yeah, thank you. Because actually, that's a good way of putting it. Because I think that's because you know, I know that I'm completely aware that I know that there's people that are afraid of me spending too long on making the game. And I know it's kind of a meme where it's like if a game takes more than 3 years, it's automatically bad or something. I get that that's a thing, but on the other hand, you know, I want to invest the time properly to make it good. And I've done this long enough now to understand the purpose of restraint. Whereas I think a lot of other projects out there, they end up taking long for the opposite reason, where they take long because they keep failing to understand the lesson. I think that's what's happening, right? It's like I'm trying to think of how to explain it better. But basically, because on the other hand, because that's the thing, is that there is a lot of ways to look at this attitude. Because some people will look at this and say this is lazy because it's low detail. That's probably how the AAAs think, right? It's like, oh, well, you could have made this 10 times more detailed. You didn't? Oh, you're lazy. But there's like a point at which there's diminishing returns, right? Like there gets to the point where it's too much. Oh, thanks so much, Luca, for the 10. Wow, Luca, being very generous today.
I know is not the style you want, but there was an app that Brandon James Greer talked about called Blockbench that maybe could help create those low poly limited assets that you are talking about.
Blockbench, Brandon James Greer. I have not heard of that. Oh. Let me show you. Okay. I have no idea what this is. But this is So what is it exactly? Let me just have a quick through. I'm guessing. Oh, so is this like an editor? Oh, so it's like a tool. Oh. Let's I'm just going to skim through this a bit and just see what he does. Okay. It's, I guess in principle, what I'm trying to do is similar, with only the props though. I wouldn't make character models in this because, yeah, like, I mean, you said it too, right? Like, this isn't the kind of style I'd go for the character models. But even actually the little reference he's put up here of Solid Snake. That. Because even the original game was actually pretty low fidelity when you think about it. I see. I don't quite... Oh, cool, it's got folders. That's actually pretty neat. Like, I don't quite... At first glance, I probably don't appreciate it that much, and I don't quite get it. But in principle, I'm guessing it's one of these things that only lets you do things primitively, which is sort of in vain of what I'm saying, right? Yeah, okay. Snake? Yeah, that's his name, isn't it? I don't know. I haven't played Metal Gear. That seems to be a common trend, where it's like, I haven't played enough games. That's going to be my biggest weakness, is that game developer hasn't played enough video games. I don't know. Maybe that's not so bad, actually. Okay, it is called Snake. See, yeah, I'm hip and cool. I'm with it. I know his name. But as I was saying, what was I saying? Like Blender for babies. Oh, that's really cool. Okay, because yeah, the thing is with Trench Broom, you can't make characters in Trench Broom. So I guess Block Branch is sort of, it's like the 3D model. It's like the Trench Broom of 3D modeling, but because Trench Broom isn't for 3D modeling, this is for mapping, which is different. So I think okay, that's cool. I understand its purpose then, if that's what it's for. So yeah, it's probably not something I would use for my stuff, but I think if I was to start a new project and I was going for a PS1 style, I'd probably try using that. Oh, Deus Ex. Yeah, I know. I've heard. I have that game. I have Deus Ex in my Steam library, and I keep seeing footage of it everywhere, but I haven't gotten around to actually playing it. But I do need to play it. I know it's one of those classic games that I really have to play at some point. Now I was gonna say, I forgot what I was gonna say. God damn it. Oh yeah. So maybe I did forget, but restraint. Like you put it, yes. because there's what was I trying to say? Because the thing about restraint is that I think there was a way, with the way the industry was naturally growing 20 years ago, you kind of, anyone that was trying to learn game development had forced restraint by the technology. So they by accident developed a good sense of restraint because they had to. Like, that was the only, you couldn't not do it because that was the only option. But I think now, with everything, the bar of entry being so low and the technology being OP, restraint isn't evident anymore, like as a de facto thing. And I've committed this mistake probably more than anyone here, because I used to not really get it. And I remember thinking, like, even for my early Skyport models, which we'll look at real quick, because this is just to go into the little story of why I don't like props, the modeling props. So if we look at one of my very first levels, before I understood what I'm trying to talk about here, of exercising restraint, let it open. Because when you don't understand its utility, and you're just constantly like, I don't need limits, I can do anything. It's like, no. No, that's not quite true, is it? But when I tried making this level, so I hand modeled all of these props. So these shipping crates, this was actually made from a high poly version, and then I baked the normal. I did what you're supposed to do, what every 3D artist tells you, where it's like, oh, if you want to make any prop, you have to make a high poly version and then bake it down as a normal map to a low poly version, which is a pain, by the way. That takes so long. Oh my goodness. Because all of these railings, I modeled those. I actually went and modeled railings and all this stuff, and all to not use it and to use it to bake a normal map instead. And I didn't know. I was like, well, that's what everyone tells me to do, so that's what I'm going to do. But not only is it a huge waste of time, but it looks bad. And I think there's a certain, to tie this to restraint, because if you had restraint, you wouldn't have gone and made the high poly in the first place. You would have started already with a lower canvas, a smaller canvas, and you would have been able to get something that looks better than this without having to model a high poly version. That's what I'm trying to say, right? Because this was a colossal waste of time. And that's what I'm trying to get it back into with time. Because again, it's back to the meme where it's like, because I've just noticed this pattern where every indie game online, the minute the clock rolls after 4 years, you basically become a meme. Like, that's the thing I've noticed. Any game that takes more, that it's Duke Nukem Forever. The minute the clock ticks to 4 years in development, everyone just assumes it's Duke Nukem Forever and that it's never going to get finished. I don't know why that's a thing, but that's a thing, and I'm aware that that's a thing. And I think there's like a certain way of, like, there's a right way to cut time. And I think too much of the time I see this where people are trying to cut time the wrong way. And the wrong way is the way that the contractor attitude of putting in minimal effort and justifying it by saying, well, it takes less time, as if that makes it okay somehow. But there's a right way to spend less time on something, and it isn't by being lazy. Because this is the idea I'm kind of just trying to think this out loud, because I've had this in my subconscious for like the last 2 years now, and this is actually a great kind of, there's something with what I'm trying to do now that demonstrates this difference, and I'm trying to cook real time right now and put it into words right now. But I've had this thought swimming around in my head for ages. But for something like this is like the contractor's lab. Like, this was done in like maybe a week, something very fast, right? But it took less time for all the wrong reasons. It took less time because they didn't care and they didn't try. And it shows because it looks incoherent, and And this is what I'm trying to get at, is that it's actually all higher poly than all of the stuff I'm doing. All of these vents are detailed in higher poly. This lamp has like, it's got modeled in, like this freaking model is a full-on cylinder. This could just be a texture, but it's a full-on cylinder with all these edge loops on it. And like, you know, like you get what I mean, right? Like the cables have all been modeled in. Like it's more detail. And it's quicker insofar as that you can just bash it together and whatever. But it took quicker for the wrong reason. Like, I don't know if that makes sense. I can't think of a better way to explain it, but this is the absolute worst way to do things faster. Because this does not hold up. Because after a few months, people start noticing that it looks weird. It looks like an AI freaking did it, right? And with things like what I'm trying to do with this, is that there's a what was I trying to say? Like it takes time now. It didn't used to take time 20 years ago when it was the only option. But now, with all of the options we have, it takes time for the charm to wear off and for you to know how to actually exercise restraint. And I think that is a thing that's happening to like every indie dev right now that no one is talking about. Because, hold on, because I've got like 3 thoughts at the moment kind of fitting into each other but there's something going on there, right? Like there's a thing going on where there's a time element and a restraint element. And I think what I'm trying to say is that a lot of the development time for a lot of projects right now, including mine, is people that have no training like me having to teach themselves restraint, which takes time. That's sort of what I'm trying to say, right? It isn't that like, because, you know, doing high poly, everything takes time as well. But going through that, realizing that it's wrong, and then doing it the right way, that takes even longer. But it means that the little final chapter of it where you do it the right way, that part will take less time. But to know that that's the right way, that will take less time for the right reasons, you can't just know that immediately. Like that it takes time to get to the mental maturity point where you value that at all as like a noble thing. Because by default, it's like the entire world right now is trying to gaslight you into thinking that, no, you can't do only 10 polys. No, you have to do a sculpt. You have to do a high poly. Like everything I see now is trying to gaslight you into overdoing it. And it takes time to undo that conditioning. But on the other hand, like that is new. Like that's a new thing, because in 1994, this whole thing wasn't a thing because there was only one road. Like you physically couldn't overdo it because the technology was too limited. So that's kind of what I'm trying to say, is that there's like game developers today, like because I think there's this thing where, you know, people look at game devs today and look at game devs from 1994 and go, oh, people in 94 could do this. What's going on now? But what's going on now is that everyone's being brainwashed right now, which wasn't happening back then. And the good ones, I mean, I don't know. I think it's good. It's a value judgment. I personally think it's good. If you disagree, whatever, I don't care. But the people coming in now, they have to get the junk out of the way first to be as good as the people from 1994. Whereas the people in 1994 were the trailblazers. They didn't have all this propaganda in the way, right? Because that's kind of what it is, I think. It's like game dev propaganda where everything needs a normal map on it. Everything needs to be a 4K texture. And if it's not, then it's sell enough. You do a Phil Spencer going, oh, well, good games don't sell anymore, or whatever. Like, I don't think any of that is real, okay? Now, I don't have any of my own experience and sales to back this up on, but just on principle, I just have a gut feeling that there's some weird propaganda going on right now where we're trying to be gaslit into just overdoing stuff like this. Like, I don't know. I know this sounds like a weird conspiracy theory, but this has been sitting in my head for a while, and I think it's starting to come through now in the results I'm trying to achieve. And undoing all of the brainwashing and the the propaganda. Like that's the thing that takes time, so that you know to not waste time on the wrong things. That's sort of that's the conclusion, really. It takes time to know where to spend time the right way, kind of thing. I don't know if any of that made sense, by the way, but I had to get that out there. I think I had to say it. I don't know. Did any of that make sense? The 80-20 rule? Yeah, I guess it is a bit like the 80-20 rule. It is, yeah, you know what? Because I didn't used to understand the 80-20 rule at first. But now I think I kind of get it. Because it usually you think of it in statistics where it's like, there's like 20% that's good and 80% that's bad. But the actual rule is like 20% of the work is responsible for 80% of the result. That's actually very well put, actually. That's precisely it. It's because when you're in the beginning stages, you have no idea what is the 20% and what is the 80%. You don't know. So you have to like figure that out. So for me, this is sort of, to bring it back on track here, this is why I brought this up, because I feel like now I'm actually starting to understand what the 20% is, that it will be responsible for the 80%. And it's stuff like not overdoing props, like doing what it needs to do and nothing more, or the other stuff I've talked about in the stream so far. Like there's those elements that, those things feel like the 20%. But stuff like hand modeling that shipping crate, I'll drag one in. Stuff like this, where you're doing a normal, like baking the normal, like that feels like the 80% that is not worth anything. Like that feels like the 80% that is only really going to affect the result 20% type thing. That's what that feels like. But at the time, I don't know. I didn't know that. And I was like, oh, well, that's what you're supposed to do. So everyone should be doing and that's why I ended up having absolutely no confidence in my level design skills for a long time, because I thought, well, if it's all going to be like this, where I have to go through this rigmarole of doing a freaking high poly sculpt for everything and not even using it, to just use it as a bake for a normal, like, my brain went, if that's going to be the rigmarole I have to do for everything, because I didn't enjoy it. I did not enjoy it. It was hell. And it's like, well, that means the rest of my game is going to be hell. And it's like, oh, damn, I don't want to do that. I know, I'll just hire someone else to do it. But that was even worse. It was even more hell. So it's like, that's kind of where I started figuring out sort of what the right approach for me was going to be like. Now, I'm not saying that it doesn't, like, I'm not saying that normal maps are bad. That's not what I'm saying. There's a time and place for those things, but I think in my specific project for that specific prop, it wasn't the right time or place. It wasn't going to contribute to 80% of the result. Making a baked normal map, like spending, it might have been like 2 weeks learning how to model like high poly stuff to do that crate, to bake the normal or whatever. Like that wasn't going to be one of those 20% things. And that's now in retrospect, I understand why that was the wrong approach for me to take for my outcome. But to somebody else though, that having the normal maps and the sculpt might be the thing that's the 20% in their project. So it's not that I'm trying to say that there is an objectively right way to do it, because if there's anything else I've learned is that there is no objective right way. It's just the right way is the way that's been thought through, that's chosen on purpose, and not just chosen because, oh, that's what everyone else is doing type thing. So that's kind of I don't know, that's the end of my little rant there, I guess, about look development or making props and things like that. So I don't know. I just have a feeling that the way I'm going to try to do this now with these terminals and whatever else prop, because like this makes sense and I can imagine how it would go. I can actually picture myself doing it. But for the other stuff like high poly, like I can't picture myself doing that. And if you're untrained, if you don't have like hindsight or anything, if you're completely green, you will not imagine it, but you won't notice a problem. Like you will try, like, I don't know if you guys, anyone here that's making a game, I think you know what I mean, where it's like you have a task that's coming up and you can't picture yourself doing it and you get really anxious and stressed about it, right? It's like you think about it and go, oh, I'm going to have to do this. I can't picture myself doing that. How the hell am I going to do that? And you kind of put yourself in an anxiety coma because you don't have any idea how you're going to do it. The thing is, at the time, I would ignore that and go, well, I better suck it up. And I would just get on with it and suffer. But what I've come to learn, because this is what you get in that time that you don't get when you rush a project. You don't get this when you rush a project. Because what I learned was, oh, that's actually a signal that I should listen to. When I get that feeling of I can't picture how this is going to go, that is not something to ignore. That's that's an error in the console log telling me there's a problem. Do something. Not just, oh, I'll just ignore that error. Like, no, that's not the attitude to have. That's your brain having a console log readout telling you that there's going to be an error with this thing you're going to do. And if you ignore it, because you know what happens when you ignore an error. It becomes more hell. And that's like the equivalent of what I did modeling that crate, was that I ignored the feeling of this is wrong, and I did it, and I suffered more. And that's the equivalent of ignoring the error in the brain. That's what I did. So I don't know. That's another weird way of putting it, I guess. But I don't know. Like, that's how my brain looks at it now, which it definitely didn't do at the beginning. More like a window alert. Yeah. Or however you want to put it. See, for me, my brain has a little console log like this in it, where I'm constantly... There's a bunch of... These are all my thoughts. Just the normal white text are like my thoughts. And then every so often, there'll be a red one in there. And I can tell when that is the case because I can feel it. Like, my spirit takes damage when one of these comes up. And I feel something. I feel disturbed. Or something like that, right? And if I feel disturbed, it's like, oh, there's an error in my window. And then I think about what it is, and it's like, it's probably because I'm anxious about this thing I've got to do. And I'm probably anxious about it because I can't picture how I'm going to do it. And I can't picture how I'm going to do it, probably because it's the wrong approach in the first place. And there's probably some other way that I could actually do it. So that's I don't know, that's sort of the process for me there. It's a disturbance in the force, precisely. Lemon Drop says, there's no such thing as dragons. If that quote's from where I think it's from, then that's very apt too. There is such a thing as dragons. They exist everywhere. They exist in this error window right here. This has got no errors in it, but if there was, there'd be a dragon. And the more you leave it alone, the bigger it gets. And you don't want that. You don't want it. Disturbing the peace. Yeah, it's like a disturbance in the peace. That's exactly right. Sorry, I'm just scrolling up a bit because there was a lot of messages you guys sent when I was talking about the brainwashing. To be fair, hard to resell a game from 1994. I mean, I don't know, man. Like, the last 2 games I've purchased have been from 1994. So maybe it isn't that hard. I don't know. Because the Quake remaster is actually pretty good. Because it's technically a 1994 game, but they've like made it work on modern Windows now, and they've improved the user experience. But it's still the same game, right? So it's maybe it isn't that hard to resell a game from 94. I don't know. Because I mean, they're so well made. They stand the test of time. Be pretty easy to sell a timeless product. Now bringing what you just said into something I wanted to tell you but didn't. Isn't focusing on the colors 80%? No, see, I think the colors is one of the 20% things. I think the 80% is when you go overboard with greebles and what would you say? Like, the 80% there, in my opinion, is when you think, oh, I need to have 100 textures. And each of them are going to have a different pattern, and the pattern's going to be super detailed. And like that, to me, I can just already feel my brain hurting. That is like the 80% that is really only going to make like a 20% of the impression. I think color is precisely the opposite. Color makes a huge impression. Color is... Because color is like not... Like, it takes less time to pick a color than it does to pick out 100 textures or to draw all this detail or whatever. It takes less time to pick colors, and you only need to pick a few. But it's that is like maybe 20% of the work is picking the color. But it's responsible for like 80% of the vibe, if you want to put it like that. So that I would say it's more like color is one of those things that is 20%. And that's kind of, you can kind of tell with the old lab that wasn't, that the 80-20 was flipped the wrong way around with the old lab. I'll get it open again one more time. And I'll probably get going soonish, because I think that was all the topics I had for this week. But if you look at like this again, right? In terms of the actual colors, you can kind of see what I mean, is that the colors haven't really been thought about that much. Like, they're only using whatever is the Quixel Megascans texture, which is just this. It's just white gray, and then you've got the random warning tape everywhere for no reason, and different shades of gray for no reason, and then green, which doesn't really... Because, by the way, for this level, I actually did make a brief with the colors on it, and it was supposed to be like gray, white, maroon, and turquoise, but I haven't, like, they didn't follow it for some reason. I don't know. Like, I don't see maroon anywhere, and it was meant to be there. But now I would probably not pick those colors. I think I would pick like the green and maybe something along, yeah. And then like this, because this is the wrong green too. This is way too green. It has to have more blue in it. But it leaves you an impression that because that's the thing. It's to get you to not look at the detail and to look at the impression, which is, it's hard to do that if you don't have like an eye that's trained. And I don't know if that's the right word, because my eye is not trained. But it's like just being able to see beyond like the immediate whatever is going on in the frame, right? Because when you look at things like the wrong shade of green, what that really is a symptom of not caring when it's the wrong, even though it might seem like a minor thing. And that not caring vibe, that is absolutely going to leave 80% of the impression. Like, that is going to, if you have one bit of it that looks not right, even if everything else is fine, players are going to notice the thing that's not fine all the time. And I know this because every time I've posted stuff myself, it's happened in the comments where people will always notice the thing that seems like 20%, but is actually 80%, because that's the thing people pay attention to more. I don't know if that makes sense, but color isn't, like, imagine if you had this same thing going on, but instead of using random shades of gray and random shades of green, because I know this was all just picked from like some random, like, whatever, like the color wheel. Imagine if instead this had like the half, like, this is the difference between this and Half-Life 1. This is what I'm trying to, I don't know if I need to explain it more, but this is the difference. And I know it, like, just ignore the detail for a moment. It's not about the detail. It's about the impression. You'll notice that this just doesn't, it's discordant. Whereas this, the impression of the color is better. And it's only like the color, like if you just think about the color choice only, it doesn't seem a big deal, but it's like 80% of the result is in the color. Whereas this, imagine if this was slightly bluer and it had that greenish hue to it, like in the Black Mesa one. It would feel way more similar to this, if that was the case. So I don't know if I don't know if I can do more to explain what's going on, but that's I think color is very much one of those 20% of the effort, 80% of the result things. It's in that category for sure. And I don't think you could talk me out of that. But yeah, but to get that kind of, to develop that sense where you know to not be distracted by normal maps, unfortunately in this day and age, it takes time. Like, that's why for me, I didn't know this immediately when I started my game. That would have been awesome though. To be fair, that would have been so cool if I already knew all this and then went, I'm going to make a game, and I just did it all right perfectly the first go. But that's sort of what, that's sort of the adventure for me, has been figuring that out as I go type stuff. But color, that's kind of what color theory is. Yeah, as the says, great username. Yeah, I mean, that's why they even made a color theory in the first place. If color theory wasn't important, it wouldn't be a theory at all. No one would bother coming up with, oh, what is this? No, that's a disgusting, that web design is awful. Get this out of my face. Let's get a nice, yeah, like something like this. Like the fact that Like this seems color. What is not a big deal, but it's like no. This is 80% of the result is the color. So I don't know. I think I'm kind of out of steam there. That's all I can really say about it. I just know that there's something to it. I'm not a university major. I don't know the verbiage. I don't know the correct terminology, but I know that it's important. Legal name is John the. Oh, thank you. That's good to know. I don't like not using people's legal names, so that's great. Thanks, John the. Watching in the background while drawing. Oh, that's awesome. Cool. I didn't know you guys were working on stuff as well. That's great. What are you drawing, if I may ask? If I may be so bold. Oh yeah, there was one more thing I was going to show. I'll get that open real quick. I think that's all the Unreal stuff I have to show this week. But before I change topics, complementary colors. Yes, that's right, complementary. So that's the thing. So off stream, I want to actually put in thought to just pick colors the right way. Not just copy them from Half-Life, but I want to like pick maybe the green and then think of, well, what do I think are good complementary colors to go with this green? And that's how you get good. I think that's how you get good stuff, is when you actually think about it and go, I want to choose this color. And you have like a reason, and not just because, oh, well, Mirror's Edge does this color scheme, so I'm just going to copy that. And it's like, no, you got to understand why they're picking that. Otherwise, you're going to misuse it, you know? Achabe says, I used to get swept up in brand new tech like Lumen and Nanite, but not realizing the overall substance of what I'd actually use it for. Yeah, man. I mean, me too. I think I mentioned some of that in the last video I did, which, by the way, thanks everyone for watching that. It's still getting views for some reason. I don't know why, but thanks for giving that a watch. But yeah, that's very much a thing now that happens. I don't think that was the case. I mean, I don't know. I wasn't alive then, but maybe it was, like back in 1994 when 3D was brand new. Maybe that was the same attitude. But I think back then, game dev was just a niche enough thing that there were very few people that weren't outliers doing it. I think that's why because everyone always says, like, oh, the golden age of gaming, the 90s to the early 2000s. Like, everyone's kind of collectively agrees that there was something about that period that was superior to our current era. And it's usually, that idea is usually dismissed by like, oh, well, that's just nostalgia. And we're actually doing everything better now. But I don't know, man. I think it's beyond nostalgia. I think there's an element of nostalgia, but I think what people are seeing, because nostalgia doesn't last very long. And I think what people are really seeing is that the games that aged well from the 90s are now old enough where we can notice the age. We don't notice the novelty anymore because it's old. And all we're seeing is the brilliance. We're seeing everything that's left after the novelty wears off now, which is why a lot of them stand out. And I think it was the case that for whatever reason, because the industry was not this popular mainstream thing that everyone and their dog wanted to do, it attracted higher quality, exceptional people because they made up, the industry itself was smaller, and like 80% of them was probably edge case people that rose above the average. And that's why they made so much great things. I think that's what happened. And then the minute after the PlayStation 2 would have sold however many units it did, the guy started getting the Mickey Mouse dollar signs in their eyes. And then everyone started working at doing games. And then the pool got filled up where then that 80% of exceptional people became, over time, that's what happened. And again, this is just a game theory. I'm in my room. I'm not in the industry. But just from observing from a distance, I think that's what's going on. I think the tides are turning now. Something's going on now where people are starting to I'm starting to recognize it now, and I think everyone else is too. And I hope that in the next maybe 5 to 10 years, we might get another cool resonance stage where people have kind of collectively, what's the word? They've been demystified by this, by the new stuff. and they all collectively realize it doesn't matter now, and then we get back to what it's supposed to be about, if you know what I mean. I don't know, like that's sort of what I think is going on in general with the whole underneath the surface of the Unreal 5 hype. I think that's the dynamic that's happening really underneath is there's more people that get fooled by that than don't, and I think it's just because it's a popular industry. I think that's what's happening. There's a Procrastica says bring life to art again, and I think art is the key word here, because the things that we see in the old, and on screen, I've got this on screen, I'll get to this in just a second, but the stuff that was like there that we see in these old classic games from the 90s, because the thing is, there might be games like that right now that we can't recognize yet, because these things only really show themselves after time. Like, so there might be games like this right now that have this that we can't recognize yet, but they will in like 10 years. But the what I was trying to say was there's an artisanal there's like the world of the artisanal ship, or whatever the word is. There's an artisanal quality from that era, from the circumstances in that era of like when Half-Life 1, when Quake and whatever, because the industry was so small that it was only attracting artisans, but now it's attracting financialists that have no artisanal sense at all. So they're all richer than me, which is, they're winning that game, but they won't really be able to create art, like they don't have an artisanal sense. So all of the stuff I like that I find interesting, like this, they're not going to care. But we know, even though this is not profitable or whatever, like this is not going to make millions, but we all recognize a value in it that is beyond the financialist attitude. There's more to it. There's an artisanal whatever going on. But I don't know if I'm using that word right, but there was this video I saw recently that was so amazing at articulating it. And it was a video about food. It had nothing to do with software, but the attitude was like, it was like comparing Japanese chefs and like how I don't know, because I haven't been to Japan, right? I'm not really a huge Japanophile. I like their crafts though. I like Japanese products. I like Japanese car design and Japanese music. But apparently in Japan, they have people that are actual like if you were like a professional udon chef or whatever the word is, I don't know the word for it, but apparently they have a thing like that in Japan where there are people that are like the best in the world at udon or the best in the world at sushi. And those people like have a lot of respect, and people will travel from all over the world to eat at their restaurant because this guy is like the king of sushi or something. There was some travel vlogger I saw once do this, where he went to Japan for like a month and worked for like the guy that's supposedly like the top sushi chef in Japan or whatever. I don't know, something like that. But there's on the other end of the food spectrum in this video I was watching, they were comparing the opposite end where it's like Indian street food, and they have like people just putting their hand in the soup and like being super unhygienic about everything and not washing the bowl, literally. And the video kind of, I'm trying to remember the title. It was like The Metaphysics of Slop or something like that. And it was using food as like an example, but it applies to so much. And the example he was using was like, to create like large quantities of like slop food. It's not trying to make a value judgment on it. It's not to say that it's wrong, but it's that to do one it requires a certain attitude. And there's an attitude to making slop and an attitude to making artisanal foods. And like, because there's this argument he makes where it's like, technically both of foods will serve the purpose of sustaining whoever eats it. It'll keep you not hungry. But with the slop food, it's like, yes, it's made with good intentions and it feeds a lot of people, but it is made in like this massive mixing cauldron or so. Like they have a video of this huge mixing cauldron where they chuck in all these spices and just mix the whole thing and boil it. And then they just dump it into buckets and serve it. And it does the job, but it's a very different world of like the artisanal Japanese chef that's like hand slicing all of the fish and like packaging up the sushi in such a specific way that's like almost absurd with how detailed it is. But it I don't know, the video's kind of explaining that there is like what it's showing, it isn't really about food, but it's about the attitude. One is made with another, and the value, there's a different value in both, but they both have a place in the world somewhere. So that's sort of, when I think about that in game dev, because I can sort of see how it applies to art and game dev, and I think game dev has kind of had that thing happen to it as well, where you can now, like this maybe wasn't possible in the beginning, but now when you have all these free engines, free software, free megascans, that's the big packets of spice now, which didn't used to exist before. And now you can take all of these massive tons of spice and just chuck it into this big pot. Like you can do that now. Whereas in 1994, you didn't have all those resources. You didn't have massive like packets of like textures or free engines or whatever it was. And the circumstances to make slop games, like the means to make slop games didn't really exist because it was just too difficult. You had to do it artisanally because that was the only way technology necessitated it. But now it's kind of different, where now you have the option to not have any artisanal craft at all, and you can make something. That's the difference now, I think. And it's, I don't know, like there is because on the one hand, like I know, like me personally, I don't like the slop attitude, but like I don't hate it so much that I think about like I'm resentful of it. I just kind of accept that it's there and it does its job because people buy it. It makes customers happy. It might not make the customers I want to make happy, but it makes, like, people are out there buying FIFA every year. And it's like, is it really my place to say that is, like, should I deny the people that want to buy FIFA every year? Like, if that's what they want to do. So for me, it's like, I try to not get too, soy-faced about it, where I'm, like, crying about it. I personally don't like it, but I try to just focus on, well, what customers do I want to serve? And I don't know, for me, I really find the artisanal area, I like that. That's the style I prefer. But I understand there's a reason why there's both. That's the thing. There's a yin and yang to it in a sense. But anyway, sorry, that was a massive tangent, what I was going to talk about. But it's a cool video. It's the metaphysics of slop. You should give it a watch. It's a really cool video. He explains it way better than me. Nura says, if a ramen master pokes my ramen, it'd be a great honor, but it wouldn't be the same from another chef. Yeah, precisely. Well, and I'll just quickly, just to wrap this up, because there was a wording that this guy uses where it's like, the artisanal world, the value is beyond sustenance. It's like, the value is you are the recipient of a lifetime of expertise and experience that the chef is imparting on you on his behalf to provide you with this experience of eating this specific meal, which in the slop world, that is not even the thing that is, like, you don't even consider that. It doesn't really matter because it's more about volume. You don't really have the luxury of, in that world, you don't have the luxury of considering the individual in the production. It's more about, like, the collective of, like, well, this is serving the people. Whereas the Japanese chef method, it's more like, this is for this customer. It's tight. I don't know if that makes sense, right? But you get what I mean. It's like there's a more individuated element to the artisanal world that you lose in the other. And I think what the right option is comes down to sort of your preferences, like, and how you think. Is like, are you the kind of guy that values individuation or not? And if you are, then you're probably going to be on board with doing things in an artisanal way. And if not, if you don't really care about that, then you're going to be pouring the spices in the big cauldron, but you'll serve more people. So that's kind of the trade-off. That's why they kind of have a yin and yang, where they have a purpose that they serve, but the universes they're in are completely different. One is in an individuated universe and one is not. That's sort of because that's kind of why the video is called the metaphysics of slop, because it goes into this whole metaphysical like science woo-woo stuff about it. But I think it's really cool. I like it. I thought it was a great explanation. I can't really do it justice personally, but that's just my personal takeaway from it in games. Now, to get back on topic for a moment, because I've had this open on my desktop for the last 10 minutes. You're probably wondering why. And that's because, speaking of artisanalship or whatever, speaking of craftsmanship, so the other thing I've been working on this week is the video about Gabi's model. And it's been very, very, very difficult because, like I said, it's the recording I have of it right now is about an hour and a half long, which is way longer than anything I've done. So I don't want it to be that long, but that's kind of how it's come out so far. So I'm trying to just record over and trim things, and it's been kind of difficult, I'm not going to lie. It's been way harder to make than the last video I did, because the last video I made was like 5 minutes, and this is like an hour. So no wonder, right? It's taken a while. But I'm kind of approaching the video with an artisanal, individuated attitude, because there's a specific purpose I want the video to serve. Because that's kind of this video I'm going to be making about Gabi's model. It's about this as well, in a way. There's an element to this universe that is happening with the creation of Gabi's model. There's an element to that, because this is, I guess you could call this an artisanal approach to making a model. And that's probably why it was so hard. But that's kind of what I'm trying to make sure that I keep in mind, that that's the video. That's because there's so much technical detail that's happening. So I've got this open right now, because while I was making her model, I took all of these screenshots of how I built her as I was going. And this took a while, right? And I had to learn a lot doing this. But this was like my artisanal journey. And I think it's worth making, because part of me's wondered, where it's like, oh man, should I just give up on this video? Like, it's too complicated. Because all the resources I've been doing to research on like how I made the model, those were not videos. They were all PowerPoint presentations. And there's a degree to which you wonder, could you make a video about this and have it be a good video? Because to an extent, it's really difficult, because not only do you have to explain everything, but you have to make it so entertaining that you don't tune it out, which in a different medium you don't have. So in something like a PhD thesis or a presentation or a written talk, you don't really have that element. So part of me is like, part of my soul is saying that it's kind of a stupid idea to even make a video about this, because there's probably a reason why no one else has made a video about this. It's probably because it might be impossible. But I'm trying to push through it anyway. And I think one thing I can say for sure is that it has been a very difficult thing to explain the techniques. So I've kind of tried to shift my goals away from that now, because it's just too much. Like, the techniques are so... oh, they're so complicated that it's kind of counterproductive to explain in a video, because it would be so boring that you wouldn't watch it. And it's like, how do you make this a cool story without needing to know every little technical detail, so that, you know, someone that didn't make this would understand what's happening and be entertained by what's happening at the same time? So I've been trying to work on it more. I think the visuals help. So I've actually been going in recently. Like, the voiceover still isn't finished. There's bits of it that are better, but there's a lot of fluff still that I need to work on. But what I've done so far is I've taken it back into Premiere, and I've gone over the bits of the voiceover that are decent. And I've been trying to edit in these screenshots while I'm talking now, so that the editing isn't good yet. I don't have any zooms or transitions yet, but I've just been marking in B-roll and thinking like, because the thing is, I know exactly what I want to show, but because the recording is like an hour long, and even when I listen to it, I tune out. And that's bad, because it's like, if I'm tuning out of my own video, then that's awful, because I'm meant to be the guy that like like, I'm supposed to at least care about it, right? Like, it's a bad move if I'm already tuning out of my own video. Like, that's not good. So I've been trying to switch up my approach and just focus on the images. And so I've been collecting all these. I've meticulously cataloged these to be very organized. They're all organized by date, so they're all in chronological order. So you can see as I scroll down further, you see the more recent screenshots where it looks higher quality. And the thing is, though, is that, like, there's a degree to which you because, like, even if you look at the pictures, you aren't really going to get it yet, which is the thing that's, like, tough. Because what I want to do to a degree is help people see this the way I see it. Because when I look at this, I'm seeing something that me a year ago would not have known to recognize. And there's something really cool about that. And I think if the video should serve any purpose, I don't think the video's purpose should be to teach people how to do this, because that is just, you can't really teach people that in a video. It's not really viable. It's just like the resources already exist. It wouldn't really be a good use of my time to just copy the tutorial in video form. But instead, what I want to try and do is to, I guess, tell the story and try to make sure I keep in mind what is part of my experience and what is technical jargon. And that's really difficult. But I've been trying to kind of prune those out. And then by the end of the video, what I want to have is that people look at this anime character models completely differently than they used to. Like, I want to be able to help people see, like, to kind of ruin Vroid for them, I guess. So that when they look at a Vroid character after they watch it, they will not be able to look at it the same way again because they see how bad it is. And they see the actual work that you have to go to not have it look like a Vroid character. So that's what I try to keep reminding myself of. But because of all the technical stuff, it's just very easy to get caught. So I'm trying to work out still what the best approach is to explain, to get my intentions across, and to, like, help, I guess, train people's eyes in the video to see what's actually going on, but without needing to know the technicals, because the technicals are kind of unattractive. And I know that it's going to turn a lot of people off, because, like, no one cares about normals or topology or whatever. Like, most people don't care about that. So the challenge is, can you make the story so interesting that they do care about, not necessarily that they understand how to do it, but they understand the gist of it, you know? Like, they understand vaguely the work that's going on, and they're understanding how I'm thinking rather than what I'm doing. That's sort of what I'm trying to do, but it's really hard because this was like months of work that I'm having to recall after the fact. And the recording is like an hour. And even for me, I'm still like, I don't remember every detail either. So it's like, it's difficult, but I am working on it though. Like, I'm trying to, I don't want to say when, but I'm trying as fast as possible to, like, get this thing made, because I want to move on from this video too and get into the stuff that comes afterwards, like the trench broom maps and everything. Because, I mean, you guys on stream all know this, but most of the viewers, they don't watch these. I mean, look at the viewer count right now. It's not most people that are watching my channel. So it's like most of the people that follow my channel probably have no idea I've even made this model at all. They probably have no idea. So it's like, for us on stream, we might already know. We might already have been through the highs and lows of this. But it's like, now I have to pass on the story to the people that weren't there, because there is something cool about it. But it's just a tricky process of separating the story and what matters from the technical jargon that doesn't, I mean, it matters. Sometimes it does matter though, and that's the thing that's tricky, is I gotta find the bits that actually do matter, and then the stuff that doesn't, that you could omit and it wouldn't really affect the story at all, type stuff. But it's so exhausting. It's really tiring, man. I'm not gonna lie. I already thought you made a 2D model for her in game. Oh, thanks, Nora. Well, yeah. So, that's the thing, right? Is because there was a certain goal I had as well, where I have a clip from like 9 months ago or I say that I want to trick people into thinking it's a drawing. And that's really cool that you said that, because now that's the prophecy coming true right there. So the exact thing I said of I want to trick people that it's a sprite, it just happened in chat right there. I got you. And that's, I don't know, that's really cool. I like that little thing where it comes full circle. Where at the beginning of the story, you have this rambling madman that's like, trust me, I'm going to spend all this time on the model and I'm going to fool people into thinking it's a drawing. Because no one believed me. Everyone was like, dude, this is a waste of time. What are you doing? But then like the story happened and we went through the motions and now it's finally at the place where I imagined it would be like a year ago. And that's a journey. And I think that's the thing I got to remember is that the video is about that journey. It's not, I don't want to make it a 3D modeling tutorial, and I don't want to make it a replacement for Mod to Modders Talk, because those exist. I want to make it my story of what happened when I tried making Gabi, because there was so much little cool moments to this, but it's just telling it in a way that's entertaining so that you don't click off in the first 2 minutes. That's the challenging part, which is, it's harder than it looks. It's very hard. Cold Light asks, why an anime girl? Well, if you really want to know, I do have a video on my channel called Designing Characters with Soul that answers that question. Because Gabi was I came up with her when I was like, I don't know, how old would I have been? Maybe like 11 years old or something, or 10 years old. I don't know, like I came up with her, I just drew her, and for some reason I became very attached to the character design. I don't know why, but then when I came to making the game, I was like, well, I'm sick of trying to make just slop games. I'm going to make a game with the characters I want in it. So I just stole all of my childhood character ideas and put them in. And I guess that's why. But as for why childhood me came up with this, I have no earthly idea. I guess it just looks cool, right? Because I look at... because I think that there's an element to the design that you see a bit easier now that wasn't there in the old model. Because I don't know, like the colors and the shape is cool. That's why. Because I like the point, like the ear. I just like that it's a pointy thing that makes the silhouette distinctive, and the hair being triangular and pointy. Like the sharp lines and the jaggedness and the sharp shape that it creates. I just think it's cool. Like that's literally, that's it really. I guess childhood me thought the same and went, I like having cool, wacky, spiky shapes on my characters. So I don't know. It looks cool. And anime, I mean, that's kind of why I like anime too, right? Is that anime is a very angular, because here's the thing I had to work out. I don't know, maybe I'll take this clip and look at it later and put it in the video. But with anime, I didn't realize this at the time, but there's a lot of different subtypes that I completely didn't get. Like this, right? This isn't quite my style. This is very round. And this is not... Oh, I don't know if you guys can see it. This isn't quite what I want, but this is still anime, right? This is still anime, but this is like very... this doesn't really appeal to me, though. But what appeals to me is more like... kind of like this, where... Now, I haven't taken it as extreme. This is like the most extreme, where it's like everything is very angular and sharp. I don't know why I like that, but it's cool. But it's anime. This is both anime, but you see how this is done with a different ethos. You can see it in the tips of the ears, actually. Because on Gabi's ears, they are sharp. Do I have a picture? Like, you see Gabi's ears, they are perfectly sharp and pointy. But with this character's ears, they are rounded. And I'm not... I don't know, like, it's cool, but it's not for me. But this sort of stuff, where everything is, like, the hair is, like, spiky and strandy... I don't know, man. There's something about that I think is just sick. I don't know why I think it's sick, but I just think it's sick. This is a bit over the top, though. There's other examples that are a bit less extreme. But that's kind of why, because that's the thing, that's the tragic thing, is that I really like the style, but I actually don't like most anime shows, even. So that's another weird, because most people probably think that this guy's a massive anime fan or something, But unfortunately, no, I actually don't. I've watched this, and that's it, really. I know that there's this. I didn't watch this show, but I know that this has a really cool style where it's kind of really more about the poses, if anything. The poses for Yu-Gi-Oh characters are freaking sick. And you see even the lighting is sharp and angular. Like the shadows are angular and sharp. The highlights on the singlet are angular and sharp. The hair especially is like angular and sharp. Like this is freaking cool. I like that. And the line work has this variable width to it, like this sharp variable width where it gets like thicker around the corners, and the sharp eyelashes. Like it's just, oh, it's so cool. I don't know, like I really like it. But I've never watched Yu-Gi-Oh! Like I've never actually watched the show. I have no idea if I'd actually enjoy the show, but I really like the aesthetics. So yeah, the aesthetics are cool. As for the genre, because the thing is, every anime I get recommended, it's just not for me. Like, it's usually just some high school kid, some dork high school kid who, for some reason, has every girl crushing on him. And it's just lame. And it's like, I don't want to watch that. Like, I want to watch something like, if they had like a show that was like as well written as Better Call Saul, but it had this art style, I'd be down. But I have never heard of a show like that. And it's not that it's bad. I think Japan is kind of different. Because I'm not really a huge Japanophile. I just think the aesthetics are really cool. But I really don't understand Japan at all. Like, I really don't understand their culture. But I know that for them, there's probably a more appeal to it. But I think, I know, because there was a thing I remember. There was like during like the early 2000s, supposedly, there was like, they had chosen and made specific animes for Western people. And that's probably where most of my influence comes from. Like, I think Bakugan was one of those things where it was kind of made for Western people, but it was made in Japan. Because this was like marketed heavily in my country, at least. This was everywhere. And it was on those TV channels like Jetix and Teletoon or whatever, which are American networks. So I think there is a degree to which that there's probably the vast majority of anime I probably won't like just because I'm not Japanese. But I think there's probably a little niche of it somewhere that's like, this is the stuff for the Westerners that we know the Westerners are going to like. And I guess if I had to start picking animes out from random, that's probably where I would go looking. But that's if I had time to watch anime, which I don't, sadly. I have time to look at the pictures for research, but because they're so long, they have like 10 seasons or whatever, and it's like, I don't have time for that. Like, there was someone that my friend was watching that was like 100 seasons or something. It was actually ridiculous. It'd been going for like the same series had been going since like the early 90s, and it's still going now or something. And it's just like, how do people have time for that? I don't get it. It's just crazy. One Piece, yeah. It was like that. And I'm just like, how many episodes does that have? How many... Oh, let me Google it. How many episodes One Piece? Because like 1,122. See, I don't have time to watch 1,000 episodes of something. I just don't. Like, I don't know where people get time to watch it unless they're just watching the show all day. I don't know. I don't know how people do it, but I don't know. I can't do it, man. It's too much of a commitment. But, you know, the Bakugan, however, it was short. It was only like a season or something. Or maybe not. I don't know. Maybe they made more. But what the version I watched, it was like... I was like... I don't know. It was not a lot. It was like one season. How many episodes was it? I'm actually very curious now. 50 episodes. Okay. That's actually quite a bit still, but that's still way less than 1,000. Yeah. Oh yeah, just watch One Piece. Yeah, see, that's what everyone tells me. Every single person I know that's into this anime stuff, they all go, oh man, you gotta watch One Piece. And then I look at it and it's like, oh yeah, good luck catching up through the 1,000 episodes to get to the current. And it's just like, oh, like what? Like oh man, it's crazy. Like, I don't know, because the episodes are probably like 40 minutes or something, or 20 minutes. And it's just, my brain just hurts thinking about having to sit there and watch all of that. I don't know. It feels like homework. Like, to have to catch... It's like watching the Marvel movies where it's like, oh, if you want to watch the new Ant-Man, you have to watch 10 other movies to understand the character backstory. And it's like, no, I'm not doing that. I only have time for one movie. I'm going to watch one movie. If you can't explain why your movie is good in the span of one movie, then I don't care. I'm not going to do it. I'm not doing the homework. Sorry, sir. I'm not handing my homework in. So that's, I don't know. Maybe I'm just cranky and old. Maybe it's not for me. If you like it, that's cool. But it's not for me. But the aesthetics are freaking sick. That's where I'll put it. Anyway, I gotta get going. Speaking of time, I gotta get going. I gotta go watch One Piece. No, I'm just joking. I gotta go work on, gonna do some video work, and I've gotta start approaching how I'm gonna do these textures with the palette. So that'll be on my... Oh, I completely forgot. Real quick, there was one last thing I was working on that I totally forgot to show. This is my Steve Jobs one last thing moment. So all of this I've been doing in this, doing the look development, doing the video, and doing the levels and the materials. This is all leading up to a milestone I've been working on for a while, where I want to actually put out a good demo of the game that's actually representative of the game. Not the crappy itch demo that I've got now, like a proper demo. So part of the plan with the videos is to build up, to keep the videos coming out consistently, to build up the hype. And to actually make the demo not suck. So I have done something. There's one last thing I'll show. I totally forgot, because I spent all yesterday doing this, and I, for some reason, forgot about it. But part of the thing that really sucks about the game is the health system. Because previously, maybe I should open an old build or not. Maybe I'll get gameplay. Maybe someone has gameplay of it. It'll be quicker to get a YouTube video for it. Because some of you that have played it will know what I'm talking about. It was on this specific level. Not block 2. Maybe, did I call it? No. I think I called it Calder's mission. Yeah. So we'll steal old Miz's video here for reference. But in the old demo, well, this isn't a demo. I always want to put that out there. This is not a demo. This is a prototype, and it shows because it sucks. But in the prototype, the health system was extremely punishing. And this is actually an even older version before I added in the obstacles. So let me find a more up-to-date... because I added in obstacles like lasers and fans. This is a while ago now. And it was really punishing because you would get insta-killed by everything. So there was no... Like, it was so punishing. Like, if you got hit by that fan, you go straight to the start of the mission and have to restart everything. Which is bad. I don't like it. None of you liked it. I didn't like it, but I was too lazy to fix it at the time. So I've been working on... I reprogrammed the health system completely to be not lame. And I'll show you how that's... I mean, the guy doesn't take... Because that's the thing. You had to be so good at the game that you just didn't take damage. And if you were that good, you wouldn't have noticed how bad it was. But if you weren't like these exceptional people that could play the entire game without getting damaged, then you would all of a sudden hit something that maybe you didn't even see, and then you die. And it's like, what the hell? And it's super confusing and punishing. But now I've recoded it so that it's like this. So now when you get hit by things, you don't instantly die anymore. You're not fragile anymore. You will actually take some hits, and you'll have this invincibility frames, and you'll blink in and out. And while you're blinking, you can't take damage. So if you get like stuck on a laser or something, you can just walk through it. But you lose a health point. Now, I don't have UI for the health yet. I'll get to that a bit later. But if you get hit by these fans, you don't get insta-death now. It's really less punishing. And it looks more like a real video game now, where you get flashing damage. So you can take about 4... You take 4 hits, I think. Because I think the way I wanted it is that I wanted it so that Gabi has her health, like her base health, and then she has like 3... armor pieces, because I want to make some kind of UI thing that's got kind of like Mario, where he has like the pie chart, and you got 3, 2, 1, and then when you're on 0, if you take one more hit, then you die. So you can take 3 hits, and then the 4th hit will be you'll get killed by it when you have no remaining health. So this took a little bit of tinkering, because I basically recoded the entire health system to do that, because the old one was a bit spaghetti. And because this also is shared by the enemies too, because the enemies use the same health system. It's just for them, I don't have the blinking state. But when I did change this, it ended up causing a bunch of these problems where, for whatever reason, like when I did it and I'd kill the enemy wouldn't die. Or then if it did, it wouldn't add points to my score. And then I had this issue where if I killed an enemy, I could keep homing attacking it repeatedly. Well, as long as its body was still... There was this weird bug. I can't do it now because I fixed it all, thankfully. But I had this weird bug yesterday where it was like, you had the enemy there and you would home in on it and then you'd rebound. And then because if you attacked again, it would check targets again. And the targeting system didn't discriminate between whether a target was going to be killed or not. So it went, oh, that enemy you just attacked is still there. We'll attack him again. And then when it did it, it reset the death count so that you just keep him infinitely alive by attacking him. it was really silly. But that's fixed now. I was able to fix all that yesterday, so it acts normally. So from your point of view, it probably doesn't seem any different, which is good, at least for the enemy stuff. But it's actually, I fixed a lot of bugs I didn't even know were there. So epic win. So now you can't get stuck on one of these enemies anymore when you're attacking. And then when you take damage, and that's the thing, because the turret, oh my goodness, man, the turret was so unforgiving. Because before, if you get hit by one of these, you die immediately. And now you can actually take some hits. So if I get shot by this turret, it's not going to kill me immediately now, which is very cool. It will kill me after 3 hits. There is not a live system. I know some people are probably asking, are you going to have limited lives? That was something I experimented with very early in like the first prototype, but I kind of didn't see a point. Because lives, they're kind of a relic from arcade games back when you had to pay a quarter to have a turn, and your turn would run out when you ran out of lives. And if you wanted more, you'd put in another quarter. That's where lives came from. And nowadays, that's not how games work anymore. You can just buy the game and play it. So I don't really see a point of limited lives. Because nowadays, it's really more an inconvenience. Because then I have to think, if I'm going to have lives, how would it work? And it's like, well, at the moment, if you die... And I'll play the game, so I'm not just having my boring desktop here. Because if you play the game with limited lives, and if you die... Let me just travel to the lab. That has enemies in it. If you die, you respawn at the last checkpoint, right? But when you add limited lives, it means it punishes you for trying again, which I don't think I want to do. Because if I was to die here like 3 times with limited lives, then what? And it's like, well, I take you back to the main menu, or I take you back to the very start of the stage. But it's like, why? Why take you back to the... Why not just keep respawning you at the same checkpoint? Like, is there a specific reason why I should punish you more? And I can't think of a good reason. I think it's just like people do limited lives because that's the standard set from arcade games. But it doesn't really serve a purpose now. So it's like, for me, as a gamer, as someone playing this on my computer, and if I kept trying at this one section and I kept getting it wrong, and then after an arbitrary amount of times, the game decides... You've tried too many times. We're going to punish you by sending you back to the menu. That'd annoy me. That'd piss me off. I say, hey, I was in the middle of that. I was trying to get past this section. And because I did it more than 3 times, you're going to now say that I'm not good enough to I've lost my checkpoint privileges now. Like, what the hell is that, man? Like, what's that about? Like, I don't accept that. That's gobbledygook. I don't like it. And it's like, I don't want to punish people for retrying. I want them to... Like, I don't know, because that's not how real life is for me. Like, when I get stuff wrong in the game, after, like, after I try coding something 3 times, the blueprint doesn't magically delete itself and I have to start from scratch. Like, that's the same kind of attitude, isn't it? And it's like, why should I give an arbitrary amount of tries for no reason? I don't know, I just don't get it. Like, yes, it makes it harder, but it's kind of a cope, you know? It's kind of like a artificial difficulty. That's kind of just annoying. And I personally don't like it. I like being able to try as many times as I want until I get it right. That's the whole attitude of the game, is that you try until you do it right. And I think having a limited lives, that's just like after 3 times, because, I don't know, whatever number you want, doesn't matter. Whatever number, it's like, oh, because of that, we're now going to punish you for being persistent. Which is the exact opposite thing I want to encourage. I want to encourage persistence. So at least like with checkpoints, it's a little punishment, but it isn't like... It seems proportional to the crime. the punishment fits the crime when it's just respawning from a checkpoint. Because the thing is, with checkpoints, you can decide to make the game harder by skipping them. And you can do that on purpose. If you wanted to, you could go and collect all the checkpoints if you wanted. But if you actually wanted to make that difficulty, instead of having the game impose it on you for no reason, you could actually choose to make it harder by just skipping the checkpoints, like I'm about to. Like, yeah, because it's kind of more fun that way. It's like, what if I skipped, instead of forcing myself to play to the game's terms, what if I decided on my own terms to skip the checkpoints and make it harder for myself? Because then I'm not competing with the game, I'm competing with me. And I think that's cooler. I like that. That's my attitude. I like that attitude. So I'm going to try and do this level now and collect every collectible and not hit any checkpoint. And that's a self-imposed challenge. And I don't know, man, there's something about it that I like beyond just the game forcing you to like, no, you have to do it this way. It's like, no, I don't have to do it that way. I can do whatever I want. So I don't know, because that's how I think of everything. Like when I do game dev, that's how I think. When I draw, that's how I think. And that's what I want my game to be about. I want it to basically be like the embodiment of my attitude in a fun platformer, where it's like, you do it your way. And if it works, great. If it doesn't, then, well, try again until it works. I don't know. It seems like that's how I like it. Can you beat Project Feline with no check? Yeah, because that's a fun challenge. Like, someone would probably try that, wouldn't they? Now, this specific wall, and this is where it gets extra challenging, because Trench Broom... I don't know if this is a Trench Broom problem, actually. But there's a weird issue I have to work out eventually, where... for some reason, Gabi doesn't like running on some of the walls from Trench Broom maps. And I don't know why that is. Some specific walls, she just won't run on. And I've checked the collision and everything, and the collision's fine. And you can collide with the walls, but she won't run on them. Like this one. I don't know why, but on this one, she can collide with the wall. So it isn't as if the collision is set wrong, where it's, you know, you go through the wall. You can collide with it, but you can't run on it. And I don't know why it's doing that. So I don't know if that's a Trench Broom importing problem, or if it's a problem with Gabi's wall run code. But that's something I'm going to have to diagnose before the demo's finished. But yeah, but I think the demo is going to be a lot better with a less punishing health system, if you know what I mean. So that was one thing I wanted to knock out of the way this week, was making the health reasonable. Okay, I got 2 of those turrets, and I got all those cogs without dying. Okay, I'm actually doing all right. But yeah, then this wall, she can't run. I don't know why this wall doesn't work, but on the other wall it does. And yeah, you can kind of cheese it a bit. Now, this is the same thing. I don't know why, but it's always... every wall on the left, you can do it, but on the right side, you can't. So these 2 cogs here, I don't know. This is a collision bug, but it's extra challenge for me, I guess. I'm making it part of the... It's a feature. I'm making it deliberately that way. Totally, 100%. Okay, now I've got to not get hit by the turret. See, before that was way harder, because if you got instantly hit by the turret, you'd die. But now you would get some... Okay, so I've got all 101 cogs, and I reached the end without hitting a checkpoint. I did it! Oh, hell yeah. So I'm probably... I don't think it'll give me the S rank, because I did it too slow. But that felt pretty good, though. That felt pretty good. That felt great. Can add markers to the enemies. Markers. How do you mean? Like floating markers above them so that they're more visible? Add a no checkpoint bonus. That's a good idea. Great idea. I'll definitely look into adding that. Because, yeah, I'm trying to think. If I wanted to add a no checkpoint bonus, I guess I could make that a Boolean where it's like no checkpoints or something. Or I could make it like a score where it's like the bonus starts off at a value, and the more checkpoints you collect, it diminishes that number. That's how the time bonus works. So the time bonus, because this is how it factors in your clear time into the result. The time bonus starts at something really high, like 30,000. And then for each second you spend, it takes 10 points off that number. So that it kind of balances it out, because I don't want it to just be that you finish it as fast as possible. I want it to be a little more nuanced, where it's like, finishing it fast is incentivized, but so is getting points. So it's kind of a mix between, you know, getting enemies and getting optional bits and doing it fast. and it kind of evens it out based on that. It does bias time a little more, though. It does hold this more heavily. But a no checkpoint bonus would be interesting. Yeah. Well, so for the way that this whole system works with the results screen, that actually wouldn't be too hard. And it took a long time to build the framework for this, for the ranking. But because I spent all that time making it, adding new things like that is not as difficult. So that's something I could probably do by next week. If I just got to figure out where to slot it in. Give her a BT7274. Okay, well that might be a bit more challenging. I don't think I could give her a Titan. Will you have a perfect override on the score? That's actually, I didn't think to do that. Yeah, because here's what I was thinking. What I was thinking to do that I haven't done yet, but what I was thinking was a perfect clear bonus where you don't die. But that's kind of similar to the no checkpoints thing. So I guess there's a few things you could do. You could do a bonus for like not touching checkpoints, a bonus for never dying, and a bonus for collecting or defeating all the enemies or something. The thing is, though, is that with the enemies, because if there's going to be alternate routes in these levels, it would be impossible to kill all the enemies unless you... It would be impossible unless you sacrificed your clear time, which... That's the thing I've got to be careful of, is that I don't think I want to introduce incentives that chafe with the other incentives. So if it's a bonus where it incentivizes you to take longer, then that's going against the time bonus incentive. So that wouldn't be a good idea. That would be a conflicting incentive. So I think what I would prefer is maybe keeping it to like no deaths and no checkpoints or something, like having maybe one of those or both of those, because those could still be done quickly. Whereas all enemies and all collectibles couldn't. You'd have to actually that actually does cost time to do those. So yeah, so that's how I would think about it. Because I mean, really, a game is really it's a big game of incentive and reward. That's what game design is really about. It's what are you incentivizing and what are you rewarding, and what are you punishing? Very important question. So that's the thing I didn't like about the health component, is that it was punishing. The punishment was disproportionate and it felt wrong, which is why it felt like a pre-alpha demo and it sucked, because there was a disproportionate punishment for making even the slightest mistake. But now that is no longer the case. So it seems like a small change, right? But I think it's going to make a huge impression on people that actually spend any amount of time learning the game, because now they're not going to be punished as much. For some reason, the collision doesn't always seem to work on these fans, though. I'm just noticing. But yeah, it does feel a lot more proper as a game now with that, which is cool. But yeah, at some point, I got to get an actual UI for the health, because there's meant to be 3 hits, but I don't have a UI for that yet. So that'll come. If no checkpoints is not touching checkpoints, I feel that could result in runs getting messed up. Oh, I think I get what you mean. Yeah, it's because then you might touch the checkpoint by accident. If the collision is... Yeah, there's a lot of opportunities to accidentally hit them, which would be very frustrating. Yeah, I agree. So I don't know, maybe I'll think that one over a bit. But I think a perfect clear could definitely be done. I think there actually might be a way to already do that with the system. I think there is a metric that does count if you've died already. So that would be pretty easy. Okay, like if I was to disable them. Because you could do that a different way. This is sort of where... This is something I also have to make a video on, by the way, that I just haven't gotten around to. But there's the whole mission system. This is where this comes into play. Because I think what you guys would be talking about then is... Because some of those... Oh, by the way, sorry. Thanks so much, Real FT, for resubscribing 17 months. You're a real one, man. Thank you so much. This is where the mission system comes into play, because the incentives you're talking about, because it's going to create some chafing. And I think the way you would avoid that is by making different challenges. And that's where my system comes into play, because I can do stuff like that. So, for instance, I think what we'd be talking about, instead of having that all in the same mission, you have like the normal run... And maybe just with the normal run, I'll add a perfect bonus there, as like you don't get any deaths and it'll give you extra points. I think I'd want to do that with the normal mode anyway, because it's cool. But then for the other more extraneous challenges... Oh, sorry, I hit the wrong dialogue option there. So here's the other different types, right? So if I wanted to just incentivize time, I could do the time mission, and it only has one widget on the screen. It only judges your time. And just as an experiment, I'm not going to do this in the final thing, but I've made a little experiment where these specific cogs will reduce your time, like they'll take off 3 seconds. And I'm not going to do those with the final cogs, but I had an idea of doing like the challenges. This was for another idea I was thinking of doing, where you have challenges like in the ring races, like in Ratchet Deadlocked, where you have like big rings that Gabi can jump through, but there's a countdown time limit where like you start the level and you have 10 seconds and you have to keep touching the rings to replenish your time. So I programmed something like that in here just to test if that worked, and it does work, which is cool. So if I wanted to, I could just make the, I think it's the time trial. If I go to the watch component, and if I change it to, there is a number in here I got to change. Yeah, starting value will change to 10, and then count speed negative, so it counts backwards. And then you'd make a mission like that. And you just imagine the cogs in that mission as big rings that you can jump through instead, because apart from the mesh, the cogs and those rings would be the same class anyway, because they do the same thing. It's just the rings look bigger. But if you were to do that again now I have a 10-second time limit. And if I collect these, it'll... Oh, it does the opposite. Okay, well, they're meant to add time. I guess that's something I gotta fix. But now I'm out of time. Uh-oh. Okay, so I must have configured these wrong then. Because I did this more than a few months ago. This was a while ago. So they're meant to do a thing with this. Oh, they're supposed to add. Okay, see, these all have -5. They're supposed to go +5. So if I take these 3, and try that again... Oh, it doesn't let me edit multiple at once, sadly. That's a bit inconvenient. That's the thing, too, is that in retrospect, because I spent a lot of time on this system, and in retrospect, I think I might have over-engineered it a little bit, but now I at least know what over-engineering feels like, and it's like, okay, well, now I know. So it's got a bit of... It's not the easiest system to use, but I understand how it works. But I acknowledge that if I were to do it again, I could probably make it simpler. But now one of those cogs should grant me 5 seconds. There we go. Yeah, now it does it. I can't be bothered to do it for the rest for now. But yeah, you could do stuff like that. So it's very extendable and flexible. That's the advantage, though. So what you could do is you could make a specific mission type, where it's like you have lab, and then the normal mode, and then do lab, but on checkpoint mode, where it just doesn't spawn the checkpoints. And it may be it'll only incentivize time or something like that. And then what else kind of types you have? Well, there's the enemy stuff too. So if you wanted where it's like you want it so that you have to defeat all the enemies in the stage, you could do that as well. So I do have a sample mission type that does that. I think, at least I thought it was in here. I'm not sure if I kept it in, but there is a type I have in the game somewhere. It isn't in the example scene, but it makes it so that for each enemy you defeat it. Oh no, I think it's maybe it's in the normal one. It might be in here. But yes, for each enemy you defeat, it's supposed to increment a number. But yeah, you can do stuff like that as well. So if you wanted it so that it was like this specific one, you are incentivized to defeat all the enemies, you could do it. I guess the question is which ones will be most fun? Because there might be some that sound good on paper that might actually be lame. So that's the thing, where it's like, do I want to... Like, I gotta just make sure I don't do lame ones. So yeah. The perfect bonus should be called perfect. Oh! Good one. That was funny. Am I using game state tags? I have no idea what those are. So no, I don't think so. What is a game state tag? This actually... I have no idea what this is. Unreal. Oh, is this some C++ thing? If it's the C++ thing, I'm not going to have any idea what it is. I know gameplay tags. I have no idea what game state tags are. Unless this is the same thing. Yeah, I've never looked at this. I have no idea what this is. Okay, I'm gonna... I don't know. So no, I'm not using whatever this is. I've never heard of that before. But yeah. But my system works. I don't really want to rework it again to use tags. Unless it's like... Okay, there's going to be one condition. Because at the moment, like, it's not a perfect system. There's a few bugs with it still. But I'm working on fixing those. But I don't want to rework too much with this stuff. I think I would only do it if there was some fatal bug that was unfixable, that was like critical. If it was that bad and it was like, oh, actually all the missions won't work because of some obscure problem with this, then in that condition, I would consider reworking it and simplifying it. But at the moment, we haven't reached there. So I think I can sell, like, there's a few bits in it I don't really like after time has passed. I can look at and go, oh, this is a bit overdone. But the time it would take to redo it is just not worth it yet. So if it does become like a huge problem though later, then that's kind of what I talked about in my hiring devs video about prudent intentional tech debt, where it's like, it is possible to knowingly accept the consequences of technical debt. But then you accept it, you know? So if that does happen, I'm not going to cry about it because I'm accepting that now. The main issue I have is when people don't think about it at all and go, oh, well, I'll just do this and it will have no consequences later. And it's like, no, it will have consequences, but it doesn't mean that you can't. It means that you can rush it if you know that there will be consequences. That's where I'm comfortable. I'm fine if people say that, oh, this isn't the best way of doing it and it will cause problems later, but I know that it will cause problems later and I'm prepared. If that's the argument, then it's fine. I don't care. You can, if you need to do what you need to do in the short term, but you know you will pay for it later, fine. But most of the instances I've seen from other people is when they think that there isn't a consequence and they aren't aware of that long-term element. And they think that, oh, if I just spaghetti code this, it'll work and I won't have to do anything. No. Yeah, like that's where I take an issue. That's where I draw the line. I think we can all agree to keep asking Raymond for cat puns. And Gabi, figurines. Okay, well, figurines is a big ask. I don't know how to make figurines. Maybe someday. But I do have more pressing priorities than figurines right now. But I appreciate your enthusiasm. I just have no idea how to make figurines. Tech debt is so real, exactly. But yeah. Oh my goodness. Stop with the cat puns, guys, okay? Okay, you guys are funny. I'm going to have to go now, for real this time. I know I said I was going to go an hour ago, but I forgot to show you the health component. Now you know what else I've been doing, but I really got to get back to it now. I'm going to get away from the cat puns, okay? U2s would reach out? I mean, I don't know. I think when you say figurine, I thought you meant like not U2s. You know? Because U2s looks like the pop vinyl, the whatever they're called. I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. It might be easy to do that though, but we'll see. Stop. Okay, I gotta get out now, guys. The cat puns are killing me. I gotta get out of here, man. Thanks so much for joining me for another chill dev stream. I hope you guys have a cool weekend full of cat puns and what have you. And if you're working on a project, good luck. I hope that you found my rant before about artisanship fun. And yeah, I'll see you guys next week. We'll see what we get done with these textures and stuff.